Blog Talk Radio.
Michiamo Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit Nyamewaa AKANFO NANASOM Da Medinde Ojirapo Kwesi Ranen Pata Akan Akpamumai Amaruka Ektipi Mu Ojirapo Ojiramai Mu. Greetings to all Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people, meaning Africans, black people. Today is AKANFO NANASOM Day, Ancient Authentic Ancestral Religion Day. My name is Ojirapo Kwesi Ranen Pata Akan. Ojirapo, the Akamu Nation in North America. Within Ojiraman, the purified nation Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere. Yet I say we thank you once again for tuning in to the broadcast. We're opening up the chat room right now. If you have a question or a comment on the phone line, hit the number 1 so that we can see that your hand is raised. If you would like to interact in the chat room, you must log in as a user in order to interact in the chat room. If you don't have a username, you can sign up for one quickly in Blog Talk so you can interact in the chat room. For those individuals who are new to the broadcast, we have 3 broadcasts on a weekly basis. We have AKANFO NANASOM, Ancient Authentic Ancestral Religion, on Joda on Monday night. We deal specifically with the Akan expression of ancestral religion, and we're going to get into that. On Tuesday night, Abinada, which is Tuesday, we have Ojira, which means purification. We deal with ancestral religion in general, not just the Akan expression, but wherever our people exist on the continent and wherever we have migrated or were forced to migrate in the world. We deal with ancestral religion and how it impacts every aspect of our lives. Ancestral religion, Nanasom, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, or African ancestral religion, in essence, is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. That means through ritual, we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject, to repel, to hate, to repulse, in order to realign our thoughts, intentions, and actions, restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions, and therefore realign ourselves with divine order. So the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance are the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion. Through Ojira purification, we operationalize Nanasom. Purification operationalizes our ritual practice of incorporating law and restoring balance so that we can align our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order every moment of every day. This is how we govern our lives. So we deal with that kind of information on Ojira Da on Tuesday nights, dealing with text from ancient Kemet, oral text from traditional culture on the continent, as well as our ancestrally inherited and carried, transmitted culture here in the Western Hemisphere in the forms of Hoodoo, the Akan tradition in North America, Juju, the Yoruba tradition in North America, Vodun, the Fon and Ebe tradition in North America, Grigri, the Bambara tradition in North America, and various other expressions all across the Western Hemisphere. So we get into that kind of information. On Awukuda, on Wednesday night, we have Egua Marketplace. We showcase Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, African black businesses, organizations, and institutions who are serving our community in a positive capacity and who have maintained their ancestral religious values in that process. And therefore, their service to the community is informed by their ancestral religious values. So we've had a number of individuals come onto the show to sit with us for a couple of hours, discuss their business, organization, or institution, make the community aware of them. And of course, we've also published our Okom economic development model, which is an economic development model rooted in ancestral religious values. It is therefore a holistic approach to economic development governed by the 7 principal values of Ancestral nation building restoration, which includes methods of food production and preservation, establishing a military structure, institutionalizing our values by establishing institutions, training institutions, cultural institutions, ritual institutions, and so forth, establishing sound systems of governance and jurisprudence, the building of homes on acquired land, and the manufacturing of clothing. So that's the 7-tiered structure, the 7 principal values of Ancestral nation building are reflected in our Okom economic development model. Part of that model is the strategy we use: starve the beast and feed the pride. I mean, every week you make an assessment to determine what funds you would have potentially wasted with the whites and their offspring, and then you starve the beast and feed the pride. You reallocate those funds away from that white business and direct them to the business, organization, or institution of the week. And we have targeted one business, organization, or institution per week in the process of a 52-week process that we're still within. And we do that for optimal capital infusion. This is part of the Okom economic development model. The reason we do that is you have one person, you starve the beast and feed the pride, and take the $10 you would have wasted at Starbucks or McDonald's or somewhere else and reallocate it to the business of the week. That's an infusion of $10. When 1,000 people are on the same page, and they recognize what the business of the week is, and they reallocate their $10 from the white businesses all over the city or country and so forth to the business, organization, or institution of the week, that's a $10,000 infusion of capital into a black business, taken away from white businesses and directed to a black business so that they can remain open, expand their products and services to us, hire black people within the business so they can be employed and serve us at a greater capacity and so forth. If we do not engage that process, which is a win-win process for us, then by default, we leave that $10,000+ in the coffers of our absolute enemies, the whites and their offspring, thereby financing our own oppression. So we engage in the process of starving the beast and feeding the pride. So when you go to the Okom Economic Development Model page on our website, you'll see the list of businesses, organizations, and institutions. It's a growing list. We're, of course, going to continue this indefinitely. We'll never stop. We will continue to add businesses, organizations, and institutions, and so forth. All right. So we want to first we're going to put that link in the chat room, the Okom Economic Development Model link there, where you can see that information. You can see the list of various websites of these businesses, organizations, and institutions, and also you can see the links to their broadcasts that they did with us, their interviews. All of those links for all of those businesses, organizations, and institutions are there. Their business itself, as well as the broadcast interview. All right. Another announcement, and we'll put the link in the chat room right now. If you were just listening online, you're not in the chat room, you can go to our website, ojidalfo.com, and go to the AKYISAN page, AKYISAN.html, AKYISAN page. For those who are unfamiliar, we have our AKYISAN, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference coming up. It will be on March 20th here in Washington, D.C. It will be an all-day event, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. It is free and open to Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people only. You can look at the information on the page. We'll have a number of presenters on various expressions of ancestral religion. We're dealing with reversion. We do not engage in conversion to ancestral religion. Conversion is transforming someone into something. We engage in ancestral religious reversion. We're reverting back to our pristine state, our original essence, who we actually are, returning back. And of course, Etchi means back, and sign means to return. Etchi sign in not only the Akan language, but Chi sign in ancient Kemet means to return back as well. So this is what we will be dealing with on March 20th. You'll see on the page the flyer. You can download the most recently updated flyer, with a number of the presenters, 5 presenters so far. We will be including about 2 more presenters, so we'll have about 7 presenters. We'll also have an Egua marketplace, vendors selling products and as well as services that benefit the Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit community in a positive capacity. This all-day event is open to Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people only, Black people only. It is a free event. It's a private event, but it's a free event open to all Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people and our people only. So you'll get all of that information on the page. You must register for the conference. So if you know that you are going to be attending, go to the page and you'll see the link to our Ning site on the Ning platform, and you can register through the AKYISAN registration tab on that form. If you're not part of that form, it's similar to Facebook, except we have something outside of Facebook. It's one thing to have social media interactions on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and so forth, but then, of course, Facebook will shut people down when they have, ancestral religious information or cultural information exposing the lies of the whites and their offspring and their perverse agendas like dissexuality, homosexuality, and so forth. So they will shut down pages whenever they feel like. We need to have our own social media network outside of the ones that are more popular, controlled by the whites and their offspring. So we have our own social media network, Afuraitkaitnit Nanasom Ancestral Religion Network. You can join that network. Of course, it's free. You can create a profile and so forth. We post discussions and videos and blogs, and people interact and so forth, just learning about ancestral religious culture. So the registration tab, which we just placed on there a couple of days ago, is on the Ning site, so you'll see that link on the page. So when you go to the AKYISAN page, you see there's a link there. Also you'll also see that on the flyer, the link to the AKYISAN page. But when you go to the AKYISAN page itself, you'll see the direct link to the registration piece. If you have any questions for us, just simply hit us up. You can, when you go to the AKYISAN page, when you go to the Contact Us section, you can hit us up directly there or on Facebook, Kwesi Akan on Facebook, or Jirafo Akan on Facebook, and the different social media networks. So, and you'll see halfway down the page, you'll see it's a link to the AKYISAN conference registration. And that is key, so we want to get an idea of how many people will be there, and also we'll determine exactly who will be there and who will not. And if we need to turn people away, we turn people away, of course. This is, as we said, a private event, but it's open to all Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people, Black people only. So we turn away any AKYISAN, the whites and offspring, who would seek to enter their band. All right, so let's get back to this link. We're going to put another link for the information we'll be going over tonight in the chat room. We'll put a link to that article. Usekh Maati article, and also a link to the ebook version of our publication, MMARA. And if you're just listening online, MMARA, Divine Law, Love, and Divine Hate, you can go there. All right, just give me 1 second. Okay, so episode tonight entitled AKYISAN Usekh Maati, the Dual Hall of Maat and Ancestral Moral Reversion. So we're going to deal with the nature of this Dual Hall of Maat, quote unquote, the Hall of Two Truths that you find in the various renditions of the Runu Pert Imheru, so-called Book of the Dead and so forth, misnomer Book of the Dead, Book of Coming Forth by Day and so forth. What is the Dual Hall of Maat, the Hall of Maati, the Hall of, quote unquote, the Two Truths? Where is it located within the body? What does that have to do with morality? What does that have to do with ancestral morality? Where does that come from? What is it based in? What does it mean to be Ma'a Keru, Ma'at Keru? So this is what we want to get into. So that link is in the chat room right now. So we're going to go to that text. We just published this short document on AKYISAN or Sunday. We wanted to go into some detail about the information. It will be part of a larger publication forthcoming, but there was certain information we wanted to release prior to the forthcoming publication, forthcoming book. Right now, to date, we've published 17 books. All of our 17 books, the ebook versions you can find on our NHOMA publications page, available as free downloads, all 17 of our books and our 70-plus articles as well. The 17 books are free downloads, the ebook version. We also have the soft cover versions on the publications page that we print ourselves in-house and in color on our own printers. We don't contract that out. Those we do sell, they range between $8 and $11. So the ebook versions are free. The soft cover versions are between $8 and $11. When we publish our next couple of works, we have a couple of books coming out. This information will be included in those upcoming works. This information about Usekh Maati, as well as other publications we've put forward regarding Maa and Maat. So let's go through this information. We're going to go through it in detail and deal with its implication. First thing we show is the structure of the inner ear on both sides. And this is key. We show the Medutu, the hieroglyphs that spell out the term Maati. Ma'at is a female force in creation, the divinity that governs divine law and balance. When you're dealing with law and balance and equilibrium, you're dealing with truth, dealing with reality, that which is genuine, that which is balanced, which is real. Ma'a is the male divinity of divine law and balance. Ma'at is the female divinity of divine law and balance. We can't talk about Ma'at without talking about the male divinity, Ma'a. Of course, we did a broadcast specifically dedicated to the male deity, Ma'a, and his relationship to Ma'a, and showing him not only in the culture of ancient Kemet, but also in the Akan tradition and the Yoruba tradition and Vodun as well. So here we're talking about Ma'ati. T denotes duality or two-ness, sometimes twinness, but duality in the language of ancient Kemet. It's a plural dealing with two or dual. So Ma'ati means the two, T, Ma'at, divinity, the two deities of truth. But then Ma'ati also means the region where the Ma'ati divinities, female divinities, goddesses, Ntorotu, goddesses, administer the affairs of heaven and judge the souls of men and women. So these are definitions you'll find in the Hieroglyphic Dictionary. We're going to get into detail about them. Then we show an image from section 125, so-called chapter 125, in the Runu Pert Imheru papyrus of Ani, the Ani Sheftu, and you'll see the two Ma'at divinities at the top, sitting in the hall, or the Usekh Maati, or the Hall of Maati, the so-called double Hall of Maat, or the Dual Hall of Maat. Now, the Medutu, the hieroglyphs which comprise the names of the Ntoro deity, misnomer Neter, and Ntorot, goddess, misnomer Netert. So Ntoro, vocalized in Akan, Ntoro and Ntorot, the deity male, the god and the goddess, Ma'a and Maat, and related terms, Medutu that make up their name, Ma'a and Maat, and related terms include the sickle, the plinth, and also the eye. So we did a broadcast on that sickle just a couple of weeks ago, and we showed the Medutu for that. You see the sickle is a farming tool, but it can also be used to cut. It means to reap. It's literally used to reap. It's a sharp farming tool used to reap wheat and so forth, grain, to cut, but it also can be used to slay. And it also means to slay. So you have the term for Ma'at and Ma'a represented by that sickle, meaning you can reap what you have sown abundant because you lived in harmony with divine order, because you lived in harmony with divine order for these various months, meaning you seeded, you sowed the seed, planted, watered, and so forth, did everything you needed to do for the full flowering of the plant in harmony with order, and now you can reap the reward, reap what you have sown in a harmonious way, and therefore you can nourish yourself, you can strengthen yourself, nourish your family, strengthen your family, and so forth, because you lived in harmony with the cycles in nature. You were able to produce this or aid in the production of this flawless product that can be nourishing for you. So you have this sickle reaping the benefits of that abundance, but also dealing with law, balance, but also the term ma'a also means sight, vision, something seen. Ma'a, the symbol of the any, the eye, and the sickle up under the eye, representing that. But ma'a, of course, also means to be true, to be upright, true, truthful, veritable, real, actual. And the symbol is the sickle once again, but then the plinth, an elevation of earth. That's what the plinth really is. You see the divinity standing upon this base, this foundation. You also see the deity sitting upon this base of foundation. When you look at the original, for example, Al-Sar sitting in the Duat and so forth, you'll see that he's sitting upon an elevation of earth. As a matter of fact, if you look in our publication, one of our books, Afuraitkaitnit, the origin of the term Africa, and we'll just give you the page real quick. On page 44, we show Al-Sar sitting on an elevation of earth, a terraced slope, and that's that original plant, that foundation. So you have Ma'al, meaning to see, sight, vision, that which is seen. Ma'al meaning to be true, to be upright, real, actual, genuine. That which is seen, verified, or perceived physically and spiritually, Ma'al, is also that which is true, actual, real, genuine. Ma'al. So the relationship between what is seen physically and spiritually. We're not talking about pseudo-scientific empiricists where if they can't see anything, then it doesn't exist. As in your spirit. The clowns will try to talk about, well, there's no such thing as a spirit because you can't see it. That's insane. You can't see magnetism or gravity, but you experience that unseen force. So when we talk about what is seen, Ma'a, it's also physical and spiritual. What is properly and actually seen, verified, and perceived is also that which is true, actual, and real. That's why Ma'a means sight, vision. What is seen, Ma'a also means to be true, to be upright, real, and so forth. And of course, that's the name of the divinity of law and balance, equilibration, dealing with that which is true, upright, real, balanced, in harmony with order, the nature of what is good or order. We're going to get into the relationship between good and order. So we show the deity Ma'a, the male deity Ma'a, with his name spelled in the Medutu, the divinity of law, order, truth, integrity, and so forth. Then we show an image of the female divinity Ma'at. She's called Omame in Akan, Ma'az called Abam in Akan. They're actually the Ibeji in the Yoruba tradition, and the Hoho Vodun in the Fon and Eve tradition. And with that divine balance of those twin polarities in creation. So, we show an image of the plinth, is the foundation upon which the Ntorotu, the deities, stand and sit. It is their grounding in creation. So we show an image of Al-Sar sitting upon an elevation, a platform. It's in the shape of that plant, sitting on his throne. So he's sitting there, but then you also have Al-Sar standing upright, and he's standing upon that foundation in the form of a plinth as well. in the lower region of the body. This is where you gain your bearing. Of course, the plinth is that upon which you stand firm to gain your bearings in the lower region of the body. This references the center of gravity. A few finger breadths below the navel and all the way around to the back, region of the back, that is the center of gravity in the lower region of the body. And then we show that those two images. The sickle in relation to the eyes, another spelling of Maa and Maat. You see the eye, then the sickle references the region inside the head, separating the two eyes and ear canal. The region in the upper part of the body is the region of the vestibular system, the system which governs our sense of balance and equilibrium. It is thus related to sight and hearing. So when you look at the vestibular system, to give some basic information on that, we're looking at the system of the inner ear. So the vestibular system in most mammals is the sensory system that provides the leading contribution about the sense of balance and spatial orientation for the purpose of coordinating movement with balance. Together with the cochleae, a part of the auditory system, it constitutes the labyrinth of the inner ear in most mammals, situated in the vestibulum in the inner ear. As movements consist of rotations and translations, the vestibular system comprises two components: the semicircular canal system, which indicate rotational movement, and the otoliths, which indicate linear acceleration. The vestibular system sends signals primarily to the neural structures that control eye movements and to the muscles that keep an animal upright. The projections to the former provide the anatomical basis for the vestibulo-ocular reflex, which is required for clear vision, and the projections to the muscles that control posture are necessary to keep an animal upright. The brain uses information from the vestibular system in the head and from the proprioception throughout the body to understand the body's dynamic and kinematic, including its position and acceleration from moment to moment. So there's a relationship with this system within the labyrinth of the inner ear to the auditory system, what is heard, and also with the eye. And this is why it says the vestibular system sends signals primarily to the neural structures that control eye movement and to the muscles that keep an animal upright. So it's connected with, of course, in between the eyes, in between the ears and so forth, the auditory system, the capacity to see. But then when it talks about proprioception, talking about balance, dealing with the center of gravity in the lower regions of the body. When we go back to our document, the spelling of Maa and Maat uses the sickle and the eye. The sickle is that separation between the two eyes and between the two ears and so forth. But then it shows the plinth, which is dealing with the lower part of the body, that proprioception. Now, that's the connection between sight and hearing. These symbols together comprising the term and name Maa and Maat, that sickle and the plinth, demonstrate that our Akutu, our spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors in Kemet and Kanit, quote unquote, Egypt and Nubia, were indicating the regions of the body, lower and upper, or earthly and heavenly. The lower region from the neck down being the earthly part of the body, the neck up being the heavenly, quote unquote, part of the body. The lower and upper regions wherein the shrines of Maa and Maat reside, wherein their divine energy operates. This is what they're indicating by showing different spelling of the name Maa and Maat. The sickle dealing with the separation between the eyes and the ears, the auditory system, vision system, of course, and the vestibular system, the labyrinth of the inner ear on both sides, the sickle and the eye, but then the plinth dealing with the foundation, talking about really the center of gravity. This is why sometimes they're sitting on a plinth, on a throne that's elevated by a plinth, or sometimes they're standing. And of course, when you talk about proprioception, when the person is leaning forward and the muscles and tendons and so forth are connected to the neural structures, and that determines whether or not the person's coming off of balance. So there are signals sent in the brain to help the person restore their balance. They're leaning from one side, leaning to the other side, leaning forward, leaning back, and so forth. These dynamics, these interactions, these messages are constantly being sent back and forth from the heavenly regions in the head region, where the vestibular system is, down to where the plant is. And that proprioception is dealing with that. All right. So these are centers wherein we perceive, meaning we see, hear, and feel, and restore our balance. We thus are enabled through these centers to adhere to the law, the force which grounds us and which governs every aspect of our lives. When we can perceive, when we can see what's real, then we can adhere to what is real. We can restore balance where imbalance has occurred. That happens whether you're sitting down and you become sleepy or something, you start leaning from one side to the other, and then you straighten yourself up because you're perceiving and recognizing that imbalance is occurring, so there's a message sent to restore balance, realign yourself, restore equilibrium. When we can perceive what we perceive through these centers, what we perceive, see, hear, and feel, and we restore our balance through these centers. We are thus enabled through these centers to adhere to the law, the force which grounds us and which governs every aspect of our lives. As we say in many of our publications, law is the expression of order. Divine law is the expression of order. We incorporate law through ancestral religion. We engage in the ritual processes to incorporate law. What is in harmony with divine order? What is lawful? And then we restore balance that by rejecting that which is hateful. Through divine hate, we repel those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to repel in order to restore balance to ourselves. We incorporate what is lawful so we can strengthen ourselves and achieve balance, and then we reject those things that would otherwise throw us off balance or may have already thrown us off balance, and we're trying to restore balance, so we reject those things. Like your respiratory system and circulatory system, you take in oxygen, but you also take in some toxins when you breathe in. You're incorporating fuels, you're incorporating oxygen. When you digest food, it goes into your bloodstream and so forth, you're incorporating those vitamins and minerals and so forth, the things that you need in order to empower you so that you can function in the world. You're incorporating. That is adhering to law, incorporating what you need to establish yourself and perpetuate yourself. However, certain things come into your system as well that are negative, that are perverse. Negative bacteria, toxins, and so forth. So you have an immune and lymphatic system that rejects, repels, hates, rejects, destroys, isolates, and expels those things that would otherwise throw you off balance or maybe have placed you out of harmony with order, a disease state, and so forth. You restore balance by rejecting those things and restoring balance to your life. So you incorporate law and you reject disorder. You accept order through incorporating law. You reject disorder by exercising divine hate. Divine law is the impression of order, or the expression of order. You're expressing through law what the order is asking. As we say, if someone says put something in alphabetical order, what are the laws that express that order? If you know that B comes after A and C comes after B and so forth, then you know the laws that express alphabetical order. So when you adhere to the law, then you can establish that alphabetical order. When we adhere to the laws that govern our physiological makeup, and we place things in our body that are beneficial to us, that keep us strong and fueled and allow us to function. When we adhere to law, we express the order that governs us by incorporating law, taking that in. But then we impress divine order by rejecting or imprinting upon ourselves and our situation the laws that govern creation. You imprint them, you stamp the law, and anything outside of the law gets stamped out or repelled, destroyed. So you express law, or you express order through law, and you impress order through divine hate. So divine law and divine hate are the two expansive and contractive poles of order. Incorporation and rejection. It's just like inhalation and exhalation. It's like consumption and elimination. You consume what you need to fuel yourself. You eliminate the toxins that you need to be removed from your system. You inhale, take in the oxygen. You exhale, remove the carbon dioxide, so you continuously function in a harmonious fashion. You incorporate those things that are in harmony with divine order, meaning you adhere to law, so-called love. Love and law is the same word in our concept. So when you're in love with an individual or entity, that means you're in law with that individual or entity. That means your relationship, the dynamics of your interaction is governed by divine order. So your relationship is a lawful or quote-unquote lawful or loveful relationship because it's a reflection of divine order. So we incorporate or take in those things that express order, adhering to law. And then we reject or repel those things that would otherwise disrupt that divine order. Reject them so we can restore balance and maintain the balance, maintain the equilibrium. So this is what we're dealing with. In the Runu Pert Himru, so-called Book of Coming Forth by Day, misnomered Egyptian Book of the Dead, the deceased spirit comes upon the Usekh Maati, the hall, the dual hall of the two Ma'at divinities. The individual comes into this hall in the spirit realm to go before the 42 assessors of Ma'at, which are 42 deities, to proclaim his or her purity via the 42 enunciations of Ma'at, so-called declarations of innocence. And what that means, and we've dealt with this in our book, Kokobo, in detail, and the related broadcast, the 42 enunciations of Ma'at, what that means practically. Not just talk about reading some text, announcing some text, going through some empty ritual. When a person dies, they connect with the Abosom as well as the Nananom and Samasa. They connect with the deities, the forces in nature, the spirits that animate the sun, moons, oceans, rivers, earth, mother, thunder, lightning, and so forth, the same forces in nature that govern all of creation, children of Amenet-Amen, the great mother and great father, supreme being, those same forces in nature that empowered them during their lives that they worshiped, were possessed by, communicated with, were guided by, the same ones they communicated with on a regular basis while they were on earth, are the same forces in nature that they invoke ritually when they make their transition. They invoke each one of these 42 divinities. That ritual invocation is an alignment of their spirit, the person's spirit, the deceased person's spirit, with the divinity. When you align your spirit with the divinity by invoking the divinity through ritual prayer, ritual song, ritual chant, ritual incantation, and so forth, when you call on them and invoke them by name, it's a provocation of their energy, and they have a response. You're trying to align with them. If your spirit is perverse because you engage in all kinds of criminality, you will be repelled by them. But if you are living in harmony with order, then you will be fused in and in alignment with them and accepted by them and protected by them. So the person goes before these 42 assessors of Ma'at, invokes them ritually, just like they would go to a shrine at home and salute the divinity at the shrine, and go to another shrine and salute the divinity at the shrine and communicate with them. Make your transition, you're going before these 42 major abosom, these 42 major organs within the great divine body of the Supreme Being, the deity, invoking each one ritually, individually, aligning your spirit with him or her to demonstrate that your spirit is pure. After this entire life that you live and you purified yourself, you were living in harmony with order on a regular basis, you were incorporating law and restoring balance through your ritual practices of ancestral religion while you were alive. You're living in harmony with your ka, or your ka'et, your soul, your divine consciousness, your okra, the deity in your head region, you are aligning with that on a regular basis. You are living a good life. And therefore, when you made your transition, before you can be accepted into the ancestral realm, you must show that you have that purity. You live in harmony with order. You're not perverse. So you align, you invoke the divinity, you align your spirit with theirs, and when you show that purity through demonstration, they will accept you and be drawn to you as opposed to repelling you if you're engaged in disorder. So this is what we're dealing with practically. And that, of course, happens throughout the course of our lives. When you engage in disorder, you are repelled by the Abosan and the spiritually cultivated ancestors and ancestors. When you engage in disordered behavior, idiotic behavior, self-destructive behavior, you're repelled by your own family members and friends. And some will just exile you and cut you off totally if you're engaged in all kinds of nonsense because they don't want to have anything to do with that. And if you make your transition and you have ancestresses and ancestors just like your family members, and you try to come and live and dwell in the community of the ancestresses and ancestors, and you're perverse, they will repel you and you will not be able to dwell in the community of the ancestresses and ancestors after transition. So it's exactly the way it is here, it's the same way it is there. So this is why we say the individual invokes each of these 42 deities through 42 enunciations, ritual provocation, and aligns his or her spirit with theirs. The total to the deities respond to the individual upon being invoked and judge him or her accordingly. If the individual is found to be in harmony with these 42 assessors of Ma'at, his or her heart will balance out the feather of Ma'at upon the scale. And you've seen that scale of Maa and Maat. You have the heart of the person, the spiritual heart of the person on one pan of the scale, and the feather of Ma'at. So the spiritual heart, that entity must be light enough to balance out the feather. If it's heavy because it's weighed down by criminality or lust or malice and so forth, engaging in disorder, everything that you engage in, your quote-unquote conscience, your heart, just like it is a repository for all of the blood that is sent out through the left side of the heart, received through the right side of the heart, it becomes a repository for that blood that has been used up and so forth before it becomes purified. Your spiritual heart is a repository for all of your various experiences, your emotional reactions to those experiences, the things that you hang on to. If you're living in harmony with order, then your heart is light, full of radiant energy, like the sun, powerful. If you're holding on to all kinds of lust, foolish conditioning, desires, anxiety, depression, all these kinds of things, then your heart becomes heavy. It's like here in the physical world, you go through some form of anxiety and so forth. You don't know how to respond. You don't know how to interact. You don't know how to deal with these things on a regular basis because we've lived this perverse culture. We don't know how to regulate our emotional energetic output and so forth. We misuse the energy that we have. We become swamped by negative expressions of emotional output, energy and so forth, and we become weighted down. You say your heart feels heavy literally. It feels heavy, you can feel it. Well, the spiritual heart becomes weighed down by anxiety, depression, misguided anger. Anger in and of itself is fire. And fire purifies by burning up that which is perverse. So there's nothing wrong with anger, but a misguided anger rooted in a frustration of unmet expectations, kinds of expectations which weren't in harmony with divine order anyway, that leads to that kind of stress and that weighted down feeling of the heart and so forth. The spiritual heart, the Ab, or Ebal as it's called in Akan, or Ab in ancient Kemet, that spiritual heart becomes weighted down, and therefore the scales are tipped, and the heart does not balance out the feather because it's not light. Therefore, you see the divinity Amut with the head of a crocodile, the body of a hippopotamus, and they consume the heart when it doesn't pass that scale. It doesn't pass the test on the scale. But when it does pass the test, when you have demonstrated through the course of your life you lived in harmony with divine order, you didn't allow your heart to be weighted down by lust and malice, misguided desire, and a misguided moved to an evil intent to corrupt and destroy and so forth. You lived in harmony with order. You embraced divine law, love, and you embraced divine hate and utilized each accordingly. Then you were in balance, equilibrium, and therefore your heart is balanced, and therefore it passes that test. Then you go before these divinities and they can feel your heart is balanced. You're not holding on to any lust of perversity or malice and so forth, and therefore you are accepted into the realm of the ancestresses and ancestors of your blood circle who are spiritually cultivated. This is why we say he or she can then go forth and dwell with the community of his or her ancestresses and ancestors in tranquility in the Sekhet Hetep, meaning the divine fields of peace in the ancestral realm. If found to be out of harmony, he or she will be repelled from the Sekhet Hetep and will suffer in the spirit realm. The suffering includes wandering as an earthbound, any grounding or a spiritual balance, Maa and Maat. When you lose that grounding, it's no different than someone losing their sense of balance. Someone drunk, for example, can't maintain their sense of balance, falling around, dizzy and so forth, injuring themselves because they're not grounded and they're not balanced. Someone separates from their physical body through the transition of death and they were not grounded, they weren't in alignment with their own craft, their soul, their divine consciousness, they therefore are wayward, just floating around, hanging around the places where they died, where they were murdered, and so forth, causing problems for people, lashing out at people spiritually, getting into people's dreams, disrupting people's movements, disrupting people's relationships, and all kinds of different kinds of things. Usekh Maati, or the Dual Hall of Maat, of the dual law in the body of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, and only Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, are the canals leading to the vestibular system. Those two canals leading to the system are the two halls of Ma'at, or the Usekh Maati. It is the sending of energy to this region that maintains your sense of balance in the world every moment of every day. So that's just on a mundane level. The structure of the vestibular system, as we talked about the canals and so forth within the system, that maintains your sense of balance on a regular basis. So just on a mundane level, if you were leaning over to get something, you were about to fall, but then you were able to straighten yourself back up. Just like a cat can always straighten itself back up, land on its feet and so forth, that you're maintaining your sense of balance and groundedness. That's on a mundane level, when you send energy to that region. However, for Afuraitkaitnit, Africans, black people, only, of course, we also have the capacity to communicate with Ma'at and Ma'a via this shrine of dual halls within our physical body. This is where you get the sickle in between the eyes dealing with to see, vision, Ma'a, that which is true, right, veritable, real, actual, genuine, Ma'a, Ma'at, dealing with law, equilibrium, balance, that which is discerning, delineating, properly separating and segregating to see what is true, what is real, breaking down exactly what's happening and its relationship to the whole. This is what the sickle between the eyes and up under the eyes is talking about, discerning vision. Not just blurred vision, but discerning the details about every aspect of everything and how it fits within the whole. So we can send energy to that region, to those two eyes, sending blood and energy to this region, this shrine within our bodies through ritual invocation, is akin to placing a food offering upon the physical shrines of Ma'a and Ma'at. The stimulation of this region ritually opens us to hear, see, and speak truth, thereby becoming Ma'a Keru, Ma'at Keru. And we say we have confirmed this via our Aboa Nkwa ritual practice, which is practice founded in Akwamo Mine and Madukai Tipi Mu, the Akwamo Nation in North America, as well as Fanti Mine, the Fanti Nation within North America, ritual movement based on our animal totems for our health and wellness, for spiritual balance as well. So, moving our bodies in the form of our ancestral totems, our Achinebois, the animal totems of our direct blood circles, of our matriclans and patriclans. We move our bodies in the positions, the movements of our animal totems. We generate the energy connected to that complex because we're part of that complex as well. We have animal totems that are connected to us because we're part of the same energy complex governed by the same abosom, the same divinities, and therefore when we move in the forms of these animals, these Achineboa animal totems, we stimulate that energy complex as well. And we talk about through that ritual practice, but other ritual practices as well, we have confirmed that. When we talk about placing an offering on a shrine, we place an offering on the shrine, just like if you give someone some food and they consume the food and it energizes them. The vitamins and minerals energize them physically. When you place an offering on the shrine, the spiritual energy that is emanating from that substance is what provokes the energy of the abosom. You utilize that as an instrument to provoke the energy of the abosom. No different than burning a candle and stimulating fire. And that stimulation of fire provokes energy of fiery abosom, and then they have a response for you. So placing food upon a shrine is provoking the energy of the abosom. In the same fashion, when you send blood, which also includes sending energy, because the blood carries the life force energy, when you send that energy to these different shrines of your body, when you're moving your body in different positions through ritual dance, as well as Aboa Nkwa, as we've talked about, through ritual movement connected to the Achineboa, the animal totems connected to your direct blood circle. Physically, when you move your body, flex your muscles, bend, stretch, do whatever you're doing, engage in ritual dance and so forth, of course you're sending blood to these different muscle groups and different organs and organ systems physically. At the same time, however, these different aspects of our body, these organs and organ systems, are shrines of the different deities, the abosom, Orisha, Voodoo, and so forth, Ntoru, within our body. Only Afurakani and Afuraitkaitnit people only. So when we send blood to these shrines, we're giving a blood offering or a blood sacrifice to the shrines of the deities within our bodies, and the life force energy that's moving through the blood, of course, is sent to those shrines as well. So when we engage in ritual movement and we send blood or energy up to the vestibular system, the two halls of Ma'at, we're not only stimulating those canals within us, but we're sending energy to those regions, between the eyes, between the ears, all connected to invoke Maa and Maat in their shrines within our bodies so we can communicate with both of them. And they communicate with us, they possess, they communicate just like any other Orisha, Abosom, Voodoo, Ntoru, and so forth. And therefore we can learn and see. When we invoke Maa, invoke Maat, we can see Maa, what is true, real, veritable, actual, Maa, and so forth. So when we invoke them, we want to know what's real, what's in harmony with the law. What thoughts, intentions, and actions are equilibrating, what thoughts, intentions, and actions will be disequilibrating, so we can reject those thoughts, intentions, and actions and embrace the ones that will keep us in harmony with divine law, that will allow us to incorporate law, establish that equilibrium, and maintain that equilibrium. That's why we invoke Maa and Maat. Ultimately, every time we learn what is lawful, what is in harmony with order, we have invoked Maa or Maat, or we evoke one of our ancestors and they led us to that invocation of Maa and Maat so we can get on the right track. Now, and so this is why we say the stimulation of this region, meaning the shrines of Maa and Maat within our bodies, ritually opens us to hear, see, and speak truth. When you can hear and see, and of course, the two halls of Ma'at, the auditory chambers, the labyrinth of the inner ear on both sides, you're able to hear within that hearing. The balancing system within the vestibular system is connected to the eyes, as we talked about earlier with regard to the system. You can hear and you can see. The hearing is the two halls. The term for seeing, one of the terms for seeing is Ma'a and Ma'at as well. Once you can hear and see, now you can speak truth. You can speak Ma'a. You can speak Ma'at. you can command Ma'a. You can command Ma'at, not only speaking things that are true, but you have the capacity through the sound vibrations of ritual song, ritual incantation, ritual prayer to move matter, because you can invoke the Abosom, evoke the ancestresses and ancestors of your blood circle that are in harmony with order, that are spiritually cultivated. So then such individuals can engage in healing. The sound of their voice, the sound vibrations help to realign people who are out of order, just through sound vibrations, just through speech, just through ritual song, ritual chant, ritual prayer, ritual incantation. The sound vibrations alone have that capacity. When you're living in harmony with order, you can provoke the energy of the Abosom and they will respond because you're living in harmony with order. You can evoke and provoke the energy of the NHOMA and and they will respond because you're living in harmony with order. They will not respond if you're not living in harmony with order. Of course, you can invoke Amen and Amenet and they respond because you're living in harmony with them, living in harmony with order. So you become Ma'a Keru, Ma'at Keru. Ma'a means true, of course, and law and so forth. Same with Ma'at. And then Keru, Ker means to speak, to voice, to command, and so forth. So when you're speaking or voicing or commanding, that which is Ma'a, genuine, real, balanced, equilibrating, and so forth, that means you've achieved that level of development. Ma'a, Ker, in the Akan language is MMARA, She. She means to voice or command in Akan, just like Ker means to voice or command in NHOMA. Ma'ara means law in Akan, just like Ma'a means law in NHOMA. So those Mara She people are Mara Shefo. In the mundane sense, they call them legislators. Those who speak or command, She, the Mara, the law. Mara Shefo or Mara She people. But in a spiritual sense, they're the ones who speak that truth, speak that law, legislate the morality of the Abosom, legislate the morality of the NHOMA and the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, which is rooted in the direct morality or divine order emanating from Amenet-Amen, which we're about to get into. So we have a quote here from chapter 125 of the Rudu Pert Imheru. And it says, to be said when one comes to the Usekh Maati, the hall of the Dual Maat, the Dual Hall of Maat, to be said when one comes to the Usekh Maati, of separating one from disorder, evil which one has experienced, and of seeing the faces of all of the deities. Hail, great God, master of Maati, I have come to you, my sovereign. I know the names of the 42 deities who exist with you in this hall of Maati, who live as the punishers of evildoers, who live upon their blood. I have come to you and have brought to you Ma'at. I have driven away for you evil, disorder. I have not done evil. Do not let punishment therefore befall me in the hall of Maati, for I know and am in harmony with the deities who are in it, they who are followers of the great God. And we say when one demonstrates that he or she has maintained balance, lived in Ma'at, he or she secures the protection of the Untoru to the deities, and guidance of the Aku to the ancestral spirit. So in that particular section, the person has passed the balancing of the heart against the feather. They're coming before Asar, as well as Aset and Nebehet, who are sovereigns in the spirit realm, ruling the spirit realm. Meaning, and as Heru, as well as Heru, ruling the physical realm, so forth, as king and queen mother and so forth in the physical world, and Asar and Aset ruling in the spirit realm and so forth. In this particular text, after he passes the test, the balancing of the heart against the feather, he says he knows the 42 names of the 42 divinities. He has aligned himself with them, and therefore he has been accepted by them. So then he is able to come before Al-Sar, the ruler of the ancestral realm. In this particular text, when they're talking about Ntoro-A, the great Ntoro, the great God, they're talking about Al-Sar being the sovereign of the spirit realm. It does not mean great God in the sense of the supreme being. Amen is the supreme being, the great father. Amenet is the great mother. But in this sense, they're talking about the great one who's the ruler of the ancestral realm, the spirit realm, and so forth. So when he's talking about that, and this particular text is saying this is what you are to say once you come into the Usekh Maati, the hall of the dual ma'at, the dual law, and so forth. You have separated yourself from disorder after you've experienced and seeing the faces of various divinities. That's the context. This is what you are to say. This is the invocation you are to utilize because you have done all of these things. You've lived in harmony with order. You passed the balancing of the heart against the feather. Now you are allowed to come before Al-Sar. This is why the person says, "Hail, great God," talking about Ntoro-A, the great divinity, master or Ned Maati, master of Maati, the dual Ma'at. I have come to you, my sovereign. I know the names of the 42 deities who exist with you in this hall of Maati. He knows the names of the various divinities who are regulating order in creation. He lived in harmony with them while he was on earth, and he's proven that because he invoked each one of them by name, each one of the 42, and those 42 declarations of, quote-unquote, declarations of innocence or enunciations of Ma'at, going before each divinity and invoking them. And anybody who knows, who engages in ritual practice, when you go before a shrine of an Abosom, Orisha, and so forth, if you're out of harmony with order, you're not going before the shrine. If you know you've been engaged in some criminality or some self-destructive, lustful, nonsensical kind of behavior, you're not just going to go before the shrine and pretend like nothing is happening. They know what you've been doing. You're not just going to be able to just do some little invocatory gesture and thinking you're going to get away from some, some retribution, spiritual. So it's that kind of action is wrought with all kinds of pitfalls if you have engaged in disorder. Somebody's not going to go before the 42. They'll just stay away, as opposed to trying to go before some divinities and trying to lie and pretend like you were living in harmony with divine order when you were not. So, but he has gone before all 42. He says, I know them and I know their names, meaning I've invoked them by name. I aligned my spirit with theirs. They felt my spiritual heart. They aligned their energy with mine. They threw my spiritual heart and found it to be pure. And therefore, I was allowed to move forward. Then he says, the divinities, the 42 divinities who live or exist with Al-Sar, as well as Al-Set and Nebehet, in this hall of Maati, these 42 divinities who live as the punishers of evildoers. We're talking about divine hate, who live upon their blood. They destroy the evildoers. They kill the evildoers. They separate and segregate the evildoers from those who are living in harmony with order. These 42 divinities of Ma'at. So when you talk about 42 declarations of innocence, these 42 deities are also called those who live as the punishers of evildoers, who live upon their blood, talking about killing the evildoers. He says, I have come to you and have brought to you Ma'at, showing that I lived in harmony with divine order. I have driven away for you evil or disorder. I have not done evil. Do not let punishment, therefore, befall me in the hall of Maati, the Usekh Maati, for I know and am in harmony with the deities who are in it, they who are followers of the great divinity, and so forth. So he's attained ritual and spiritual balance and equilibrium. Just like physically, we can restore ourselves to balance. Spiritually, we send that energy, that blood, carrying that energy to the shrines of Maa and Maat within our bodies, into that region, into the vestibular region, and then we can invoke them. We can make contact with them. We can see and experience them and so forth. So So we're going to get into this whole notion of morality right quick. And then if you have any questions or comments on the phone line, you can hit the number 1 so we can see your hand is raised. And in the chat room, you must log in as a user in the chat room in order to interact in the chat. So if you go to our publication, Maa and Maat, Divine Law, Love, and Divine Hate, put that link back in the chat room right quick. So when we're talking about morality, and we mentioned in the title of the show, Ancestral Moral Reversion, AKYISAN, Ancestral Religious Reversion, Usekh Maati, the Dual Hall of Maat, talking about ancestral moral reversion. Morality derives directly from Amenet-Amen. They create the universe, direct its organization and creation, rooted in divine order. The expression of order, as we said, is Maa and Maat, divine law. The male and female forces of divine law, Maa and Maat. That's the expansive pole of order. The contractive pole of order, as we said, is divine hate, governed by the male and female forces of divine hate. Deities and Sekher. Divine law is the expression of order. Divine hate is the impression of order. Through law, you incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities you need to incorporate in order to express order. Through divine hate, you reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities you need to reject in order to maintain and restore order. If you're talking about the universe and an ordered universe, there are certain things that are acceptable and certain things that are not acceptable. Those things that are acceptable are those things that are expressions of the order of the universe. Nyamewaa-Nyame Nhyehyee, the order or arrangement in Nhyehyee of Nyamewaa, the great mother, and Nyame, the great father. Nyamewaa and Akan is Amenet in ancient Kemet. Nyame is Aniyame from ancient Kemet and Kana. In Akan, Nyame, that's just a title of Amen, the great God, Amen, and Nyamewaa is a title of Amenet, the great mother. So when we say Nyamewaa-Nyame Nhyehyee, that's the great mother and great father, supreme being, Nhyehyee, divine order or arrangement. Amenet-Amen Sekher in ancient Kemet, that divine plan or arrangement. So if there's an order to the universe, which there is, if the universe is arranged in a specific manner, which it is, there are certain things that are acceptable and certain things that are not acceptable based on that order. When you engage and learn about the things that are acceptable and you align yourself with that order, you're incorporating law. When you recognize what is unacceptable and you repel that, then you're engaged in divine hate. You're rejecting those things that would otherwise disrupt the order that was established by Amenet-Amen. Morality extends directly from that order. It is an expression of that order. We have Negroes who began to embrace socialism, humanism, humanitarianism, all of this nonsense in the 60s in a prominent way, and even before that. They believed that they were being revolutionary because they left Christianity alone, trying to leave alone certain aspects of white culture, but then they went right into socialism, which is just another white pseudo cultural structure, societal structure, which is weak and perverse and degenerate and incomplete. So some people rejecting Christianity is just like somebody rejecting Christianity because they realize all of the negativity that's associated with it, and then they turn around and embrace Islam. More foolishness. You're embracing the same pseudo-fake religion with the same fake deity who never existed, Allah, Yahweh, and so forth, fictional cartoon characters like Muhammad, Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, David, Solomon, Sheba, Menelek, all these different characters never existed. So to leave Christianity and then embrace Islam or embrace some nonsensical Hebrewism or Morishism or some nonsense like that, Rastafarianism, whatever it is, anything associated with that Bible, the Quran, Talmud, any of that nonsense. None of those characters ever existed of any race or in any form whatsoever. So you're embracing corruption manufactured by the whites and offspring to enslave your mind. So to leave Christianity and to embrace Islam is like going from cocaine to heroin. It's no different. To leave quote-unquote capitalism so you can embrace socialism and think you're engaged in some kind of revolutionary action is no different. They're two sides of the same coin. They're not part of our culture. They're weak and ineffective. So some of our people that embraced that nonsense believing that they were being revolutionary. But then they recognized, of course, that they're embracing a white structure, so they began to try to retroactively date socialism to ancient Afuraitkaitnit. Then they tried to retroactively date the concepts of Marx and these other crackers and tried to blacken them up and associate them with our ancestral culture. They start promoting this nonsensical dialectical materialism and everything else, includes moral relativism and all this other kinds of foolishness, and began to try to grasp that upon our ancestral religious practice. It's like Negroes who fear the whites and their offspring and believe deep down inside that our culture is inferior and the whites and their offspring are superior, even though they claim to be Afrocentric. So when the whites and their offspring say that monotheism is superior and polytheism is inferior, the Negro who is a slave worships the whites and their offspring, so they run with that. Yet they want to pretend to be Afrocentric or African-centric. So they began to go out of their way to try to foolishly prove that our ancestral religious practices were monotheistic. They try to look all over the walls of ancient Kemet with all of these gods and goddesses everywhere and try to say none of them existed. We were really a monotheistic culture that is self-hatred, masquerading as Afrocentrism or African-centeredness. You've never been stupid enough to be monotheistic. That is idiotic. The whites and offspring are incapable of communicating with the great mother or the great father or any deity. Just like your body repels cancerous cells, isolates them, and destroys them, kills them, it doesn't incorporate them and embrace them. It separates them and kills them through the immune and lymphatic system. The whites and offspring are the cancerous cells in the body of black humanity. They're not accepted. They are repelled. So the abosom do not accept them. They do not possess the whites and offspring. They do not communicate with them. They are incapable of communicating with any deity. They always have been incapable of that. They will always be incapable until we make them extinct. So they would like for us to reject our connection to the abosom, reject our connection to the Orisha, the Vodou, the Great Mother, and Great Father. So they start promoting this foolish idea of monotheism, that the deities never existed, and they're just one great invisible deity who they, the whites and offspring, are the representatives of, and therefore we must follow them and their pseudo-religions, which are actually based on corrupted fragments of less than 1% of the text of ancient Kemet. They stole these texts, 99+%, they dismissed, disregarded. The less than 1% that they captured, they perverted that less than 1%. So a perverted fragment of fragment is what calls the Bible, Quran, Talmud, Bhagavad Gita, Dhammapada, and so forth. Fake religion. And Negroes are following that. And the whites and offspring, because they have not embraced divine order, divine law, love, and divine hate. You have divine hate, one half of divine order. You reject, you repel that nonsense. But some of our people are still consumed with self-hatred in blackface. So they believe that their culture is inferior. They're embarrassed about their culture because they're still enslaved by the minds of the whites and their offspring. So they run forward and talk about, well, we don't believe in any gods and goddesses. They didn't exist in ancient Kemet. There were no deities. They were just principles. They were just laws. They were just representations of Ashe and all this other idiotic nonsense. That also betrays the fact that these people are not communicating with these Abosom, Orisha, Ntorutu, and so forth that they claim to be, because if they were, they wouldn't be spouting that nonsense. So, and this is why, for example, they will run their mouths about Ma'at all day long, but never mention the deity Ma'al one time, until we put the information out, and now they're pretending as though that they've been talking about it all along. But there is a track record that these people have who claim to be elders and eldresses and everything else, where they never mentioned the deity Ma'al once in 20 years, and all of a sudden now they're jumping in front of the parade. When our people embrace foolishness like monotheism or socialism and so forth, thinking they're being revolutionary, in reality, they haven't left the building with white supremacy, white pseudo-supremacy, then they begin to graft these foolish doctrines upon our ancestral culture. They start trying to say we were always monotheistic. Now, African people were always socialists in reality. In reality, that's not accurate. So the next thing they do is to move towards the pseudo-doctrines of the white narrow spring and try to graft those doctrines into the fabric of the cosmology of our culture. So you have people start talking about, well, morality is not, directly derived from the great God or the great goddess. They're already monotheistic in their brainwashed mindset, so they don't know anything about a great goddess, or they've just paid lip service to an abstract idea of a great goddess, but they can't tell you their direct experience with her. So they'll turn around and say, well, morality doesn't come from deity, an all-knowing deity. An all-knowing deity is a Eurocentric concept. It's about control. Our morality doesn't come from an all-knowing deity that we have to submit to. Our morality actually comes from the relationships that we have with our people, and it develops through our people and through our experiences. And then when our people die, and the ancestors simply represent the morality of the people and deification of the culture and all this other nonsense, totally 100% idiotic, nonsensical. Morality derives directly from Amenet-Amen. They direct and establish divine order, and the expression of that divine order is divine law. And when we adhere to law, we're engaged in moral behavior, moral consciousness, a moral foundation. We must embrace our culture, and when we embrace our culture, that includes that ancestral morality. And for us, of course, here, that's an ancestral moral reversion. We're not converting into something, but we're reverting to our original pristine state. And that is a moral reformation, moral reform, rooted in our ancestral culture. The reason why the ancestors and ancestors are guardians of morality is not because morality is simply derived from some culturally specific interactions that we have, and one group's morality is different from another group's morality. That's all nonsense. That's foolishness. Negroes reading socialism into our culture. It's not true at all. Morality derives directly from our direct interaction with the Abosa through spirit possession, spirit communication. The Abosom, who are the embodiments of divine order, possess our people, move through the bodies of our people, show our people divine order. They are the embodiments of divine order, so they replicate order as they move and act and direct us in our thoughts, intentions, and actions, and so forth. That is a direct manifestation and expression of divine order in the present, in the now, in your experience. You learn directly from the Abosom what is in harmony with order, what is out of harmony with order, what is AKYISAN, spiritual taboos, divine restriction, divine prohibition, what is right, what is wrong, what is in harmony with order, what will place you out of harmony with divine order. We learn that directly through spirit possession and communication. And when our people were spiritually possessed and communicating with the divinities and learn these things directly from the divinities, then they maintain what they learned and they transfer that knowledge to everyone in the community, to their children, grandchildren, and so forth, intergenerationally without profaning it. And those relatives, those elders and eldresses who maintain the admonitions and directions from the Abosom and transferred it in a pristine state without profaning it, then those become those spiritually cultivated elders and eldresses. Nananom Mpanyimpo, when they make their transition, they become Nananom Nsamanfo, spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, which distinguishes them from all the others. The reason we honor them at that level is because they incorporated what the Abosom directed us to do and what not to do, how to live our lives in harmony with divine order, how to execute our function in harmony with order. They received that information and transmitted it to us consistently throughout the course of our lives without profanity. And therefore, they are functioning in harmony with the divinities themselves. And of course, the deities continuously possess in every generation to renew and replenish that information, replenish that direction, replenish those admonitions, replenish everything that we need to be focused on to maintain order. So morality is coming through the ancestresses and ancestors, through their admonitions, through their guidance, through their direction, through their experience. Is coming through them from the abosom, through direct experience, and from the abosom being directed by Amenet-Amen, because the abosom, the Orisha Vodou, do not engage in any kind of activity upholding creation that is not in harmony with Amenet-Amen. They are children, they are the organs within the great divine body. They regulate order within the great divine body. They operate according to the dictates of Amenet-Amen, just like your organs regulate order within your body and they serve you, the great being. Forces in nature, the deity, the abosom, are organs within the great divine body, and they regulate that order under the direction of Amenet-Amen, and they do not waver from that divine order at any time. This is not Buddhism where they have fake deities. When they talk about the deity, it has nothing to do with your enlightenment because the deities are on their own path of development. Pure stupidity. Has no basis in reality at all. The whites and offspring are trying to, once again, take agency away from the deities. That is their number one goal, to take agency away from the divinity. So we will believe that they have no influence whatsoever, and later on they will try to make you believe the deities do not even exist. And then finally they will seek to make you ridicule the notion of a divinity. But their first method, their first approach, their first stage of destroying the ancestral religion is to take agency away from the deity, meaning they have no control, no influence, and so forth. Then misrepresent their identity, what their functioning is, and then try to say they don't exist and ridicule that notion. So, just like in Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and so forth in the West, you have Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Taoism, and so forth in the East. They all seek to take agency away from the actual deities who are our mothers and fathers, who we're directly connected to. The whites and offspring have no connection with. When they can take agency away from the deities, then they can say, well, morality has nothing to do with any deities that you people are communicating with. Morality has to do with this fake deity we created, and we're the representatives of this fake invisible deity. So that means morality has to come through us, and you have to obey us. Whatever we write down in these books, whatever pronouncements we make, you must come through us. That is what the origin of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Taoism, Buddhism, all of that nonsense, as well as humanism, socialism, pseudo-New Age spirituality, pseudo-Native American spirituality, all of these pseudo-spiritualities, even the quote-unquote humanities and so forth, it's always seeking to take agency away from the deities, deny their existence, and force you into following the whites and their offspring. If you're not following the deity that governs your own Ka, Ka'et, your Kra, your Krawa, you're not following your own abosom deities that are connected to your patriclan and matriclan, if you're not following your own Nsamanfo, Nananom Nsamanfo, the ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated of your direct blood circle, if you're not following Nyamewaa-Nyame or Amenet-Amen, then you're out of harmony with order. Anything outside of that, the great mother and great father supreme being, the deities and ancestral spirits of your direct blood circle, anything outside of that is criminal. Anything outside of that is out of harmony with order. Anything outside of that is immoral in the real sense, out of harmony with Maa and Maat. So we go into some detail about that in our publication, MMARA, Divine Law, Love, and Divine Hate. We don't have to go through the whole thing, but we have a couple of sections here. And we talked about the weighing of the heart and everything. Just want to get down to a section. If you look on page 59, we talk about many foolish doctrines that the whites and offspring put forward, and some of our pseudo-Afrocentrists, people talking about the African worldview, who have no real knowledge of the African worldview, and it's simply, and we did an entire broadcast on the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, or Afrocentric African worldview in the real sense. But those who have grafted these white ideologies, who try to blacken up white ideologies and graft them onto the quote-unquote African worldview, and that pseudo-African worldview just becomes another expression of white culture, making those people a laughing stock by the whites in their offspring, because they see exactly what you're doing, because you've been encoded and brainwashed and programmed to corrupt your own culture and manifestation of Afrocentrism right back into a white pseudo cosmology and so forth. So we talk about these foolish ideas and we list a number of them. But the key is we've been talking about morality, good and order, and non-order. What is the opposite of good? In the AKYISAN, the spirits of disorder, the whites and their offspring, those who are divinely hated, AKYISAN, in the AKYISAN perverse view of the world, quote-unquote evil, bad, is the opposite of good. The AKYISAN also put forth the perverse notion that good and evil are relative. You've heard some of these pseudo-Afrocentrists put forth that notion, or good and evil are part of the continuum of divine order. This began in a major way after the AKYISAN invaded ancient Kemet and began to deliberately pervert the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit ancestral religion. It continues today. This ideological perversion was and is a political ploy on the part of the AKYISAN to insert themselves into the divine scheme and thereby escape retribution by us for their criminal actions against us. They promote themselves as the images of the Son of God, Christianity, Messenger of God, Islam, chosen people, Judaism, images of Devas and Devis, Hindu deities, as well as Buddhist and Taoist deities. These images are promoted to this day in order to promote the insane notions of white supremacy and black inferiority. In the same fashion, they promote pseudo-spiritual concepts, the concept. In reality, the concept of good and the concept of order, divine order, are one and the same. And we talked about the proverb talking about Nyamewaa-Nyame, the Supreme Being. Everything that Nyamewaa-Nyame created is good. And we talk about the 4 deeds of the Creator in ancient Kemet, where Ra talks about everything that he made is good. He did not order anyone to do evil. Evil was born out of their disobedience to Ra. Good is order. The opposite of order, that which is created by the Supreme Being, because the only thing that Nyamewaa-Nyame creates is good, meaning that which is orderly. The opposite of good, meaning order, meaning that which is created, is that which is not yet created by the Supreme Being, is non-order. And we show the principle of having some clay, which is in an unordered state, and then some pots, which are in an ordered state. The state of clay went from non-order or unformed to ordered into pots, clay pots, or formed. Uncreated to created, unformed to formed, non-ordered to order. If someone came and broke the pots up, that ordered structure has now manifested disorder or fell into disorder. That is a perversion of the order. It's not a balance of the order. The balance of the ordered state is the non-ordered state, or the unformed state. It went from unformed to formed, non-order to order. Order is a perversion of the order. Disorder is the only true evil, and of course, it's the nature of the whites and their offspring. So we go into some detail about that and show those different things. But the key is good is order. The opposite of order is non-order. Evil is a perversion of the order, not the opposite. Evil is disorder. When we talk about order in our behavior and we're trying to align our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order, that means we are aligning ourselves with Maa and Maat. That means we are manifesting that ancestral morality. That is ancestral moral reversion. That is the foundation of sound interactions between Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. Not only individually, internally within yourself, but with externally with your family, with your spouse, with your children, with your siblings, with your Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit peers, and so forth, the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit community. The foundation of a well-organized people is that ancestral morality, that expression of order. How do you express order in Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit society? The expression of order is Maa and Maat, law. The impression of order, a divine hate. You incorporate that which is harmonious. You reject or repel, destroy that which is disharmonious. You incorporate order. Incorporate order by aligning with divine law. Incorporate law. That's how you align with order, to establish yourself, ground yourself, equilibrate yourself, and then through the forces of Deities and Sekhmet, you destroy disorder and its purveyors so that they won't throw you off of divine order, place you in a disequilibrated state, or if they've already done that, you can get back in harmony with order. So how do you express order in society? How do you live in harmony with order in society? How do you establish a societal order, a social order rooted in the divine order of creation? The expression of that social order, that expression of divine order within the population, is the adherence to Maa and Maat, divine law. That's morality. If you don't understand that, then you don't understand Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit civilization, the social order rooted in the divine order of creation. The expression of order is law. The impression of order is divine hate. That governs every aspect of our lives. So when people are engaged in all kinds of disorder, smoking, drinking, promiscuity, any kind of drug use, making excuses for any kind of drug use, misusing males, females, and so forth, all kinds of lies and so forth, anything that is not an expression of order, anything that is not in harmony with divine law deserves to be stamped out, rejected, repelled, hated, exterminated, so that we can restore balance to ourselves. Whether someone is engaged in self-destructive acts or if someone is engaged in the insane rationalization of these self-destructive acts, either way you're engaged in disorder. That is not part of our culture. That is the culture of the whites and their offspring. This is why we refer to them properly as spirits of disorder. They incarnate as spirits of disorder. They incarnate without a kra, ori inu. So they are like a chicken with its head cut off, a spirit without a soul, a disordered spirit that will only operate out of harmony with order until they become extinct, until they become disintegrated. This is why we refer to them properly as spirits of disorder. So if you are not engaged in a moral lifestyle, you haven't embraced ancestral moral reversion. Every thought, intention, and action are a reflection of Maa and Maat and an impression of divine order. And what you have done is fallen into disorder, fallen into the plans of the whites and offspring, and begin to promote disorder within the population. When you promote disorder within the body, disease manifests. The Negroes promote disorder, cloaked as African-centered, RPG, Black nationalism, Pan-African nationalism, and they're nothing but a ball of contradiction, lust, malice, self-destructive behavior under the veneer of a bunch of excuses for their self-destructive behavior. Then what you have is disease manifesting within the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit body. We put that disease out, isolate it, expel it from the body. People who are embracing order connect with other people who are embracing order. People who are hell-bent on disorder and rationalizing disorder, we separate and cut ourselves off from such individuals and deal with those who are only interested in maintaining order and reflecting order. And when they make mistakes, they engage in ritual practices to restore order, children as well as adults. So this is how we move. This is the foundation of a real Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit society, which is a civilization, a social order rooted in the divine order of creation. It starts with AKYISAN, Ancestral Religious Reversion, and that leads directly quite naturally to ancestral moral reversion. We engage that moral reversion, a return to morality, a return to Maa and Maat, and we express that, then we can also impress, reject disorder, and then we're on track. We have both poles, the expansive pole and the contractive pole of order. Now we can move forward and make good decisions. You will never make good decisions individually or as a community with regard to nation building. You have people who are embracing and perpetuating disorder under the guise of Afrocentrism, nationalism, or whatever rubric they want to place it under. You have other people trying to maintain order. It is time for a separation, division. Division is good. It's not about unity. It's about division and separation. Those who want to engage in order and those who do not. Those who do not are really nothing more than witting and unwitting agents of the white snarl stream, because as long as you're engaged in disorder and rationalizing disorder, then you are now a spirit of disorder. You're no different than a cell in the body beginning to work on behalf of the cancerous cells against the rest of the cells. So division is good. Separation is good. Delineation between what is real and what is not is good. Ma'al, to see, to delineate. The sickle, separating, not only reaping what you have sown in abundance, but also separating that which is perverse, separating that which is spoiled or destroyed from that which will be nourished. Division is good. Separation is good. When we engage in order, we connect with those who are in harmony with order, and we reject those who are committed to disorder. This is how we move forward. When you have that ancestral moral reversion as a foundation, then people can make decisions. For example, when we talked about what happened in Flint, Michigan. The people who have that character, have a record, have reputations for a moral foundation, then they can go forward and set up a funding campaign, and people have no problem contributing to that campaign because these people are known for their moral correctness, their moral consciousness. You have other people who are talking a lot of stuff, talking a lot of, rah-rah stuff, and when they set up some campaign, people are not supporting because they don't know if they can be trusted. You see other people who are making excuses for other kinds of disorder behavior, and they turn around and ask you for support in some other endeavor. You can't be trusted in this endeavor when you manifest a direct desire, a consistent desire to engage in disordered behavior on a consistent basis and seek to rationalize. And then also seek to attack and ridicule other people who won't embrace your disordered, corrupt, perverse behavior. So this is why Ma'al has not only the eye, what is seen, what is perceived, but then also what is real, what is genuine, what is factual. And the sickle separating the two. The sickle meaning to separate, but it's also to slay, to kill, to separate totally and forever from. So this is what we're dealing with. We're talking about Maa and Maat from the real sense, this dual hall of Maat, where we seek on a consistent basis to invoke Maa and Maat for balance, to see what is real, to embrace law, to incorporate order so we can move forward in a harmonious fashion as Ojiraman, as a purified nation. So we're going to go to it. We have a couple of calls on the phone line, and Michelle on the phone line, number 5306. You had a question or a comment?
Yes, Miki Amo, Brother Kwesi Ra. What's up? I wanted to ask a question pertaining to, since we're in the season of purification, I wanted to ask a question on a lot of people. Well, there's some people that I've been speaking with. They have uncertainty when it comes to polygamy. Now, they're feeling as though, I know you gave a lecture speaking on polygamy, saying that, all right, polygamy I don't know which realm or which degree it was accepted, but the polygamy was accepted, so they used that as a reason to justify a lot of lustful and lustful and doing things out of desire instead of doing things out of will, which is in divine order. So I just want to know, can you just speak a little bit more on that so we get some clearance on that particular topic?
Okay, so yes, and we did do, as you said, a Ma'akeru broadcast on that. People can see that. They can download that, the Ma'akeru page on our website. Ma'akeru is MAAKHERU. But yes, you have many individuals who they'll quote unquote join, quote unquote African culture, like as if you can join something. Our culture is inherited through our blood circle, so we're born into it. That's why we talk about ancestral religious reversion, reverting back to our pristine state. But people want to quote unquote join, like, oh, I want to join African religion because there they accept polygamy. So you have people already coming into something or think that they're coming into something with a lustful mindset from the gate. And the key is in many regards, it's easy to stop when we embrace our ancestral religion. People involved in Aru, the ancestral religious community, you establish a shrine to your Nananom Nsumanko, your spiritually cultivated ancestors and ancestors. You develop a relationship with them on a regular basis. You also have a shrine with your Kra, and you deal with the divinity that governs your head. So when you take control of that, especially with regard to the sisters, males as well, but in this specific sense, it's typically when people are talking about polygamy, they're typically talking about polygyny, and there's not a lot of abuses going on with polyandry, because typically that's not taking place. But polyandry, meaning a woman can have more than one husband, and polygyny, a man having more than one wife, typically the abuses are taking place there. And the reason the abuses are taking place, number one, because you have people who are immoral, and they try to fashion and grasp a white Arab as well as a white European sense of morality onto what they're engaged in, whether they're trying to have, teenage quote-unquote wives or whatever it is, or they're just trying to sleep around with a bunch of women and making up all kinds of pseudo-rationales for that. Yet polygyny is part of our culture, just like polyandry is part of our culture. However, the easiest way to deal with that and reject that is for the males, but specifically the females, to be grounded in their relationship with their own direct blood ancestresses and ancestors, first and foremost. So when they need that kind of guidance, and they can see ahead of time, because their ancestresses and ancestors will only guide them as to what the law is, what is in harmony with law. Is this male you come in contact with living in harmony with Maa and Maat, living in harmony with Maa law or not? Nsamanfo, the ancestors and ancestors, will only show you the law, meaning what is streaming from Maa and Maat. So they will give you that insight into what the law actually is. What's regulating this part? Is it lust? Is it malice? Is it ignorance? Or is it reality? Is it what is true, genuine, real, veritable, Ma'a, Ma'at, and so forth? So you're invoking Ma'a, even when you're communicating with the ancestors and ancestors, all they will do is lead you to what Ma'a and Ma'at is saying about a situation. When you invoke your Kra, your soul, your divine consciousness, it will lead you to what is harmony, what's in harmony with order, and so forth. So when we develop a relationship with our own direct blood ancestors and ancestors and get those admonitions and directions from them and from our own Kra, then if the situation is not real, then you reject it outright. And you don't let some pseudo-elder or pseudo-elderess tell you, well, you may be feeling like that internally, but that's just because you've been conditioned and you're really against, sharing your husband with the other, sisters. You need to get over that and all this other kind of nonsense. You don't adhere to that. If what a so-called elder or so-called elderess tells you, does not comport with what your own ancestresses and ancestors are telling you, or what your own craft is telling you, you reject what the pseudo-elder or pseudo-elderess says, and you embrace what your people say. Because many of these so-called elders and elderesses, even if they're so-called priests and priestesses, don't know what the hell they're talking about. Whether they've been in the culture 10 years, 15, 20, 30, or 40, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They've led many individuals, as well as couples, into disastrous situations because the people adhered to their words and their direction because they were a so-called elder or elder. And when their own ancestresses and ancestors said, no, don't marry this fool because he's just lustful and he's using polygyny as an excuse to be lustful. So their own people told them that. Kraft told them that. The pseudo-elder or elder said, no, you shouldn't do that. Oh, you're not being Afrocentric. Oh, you're not adhering to the Orisha and everything else. We must engage in ancestral moral reversion. Ancestral is the key, meaning your ancestresses and ancestors, your people who were assigned to you before you even got into the womb. They're the ones you follow. And a real teacher, a real elder, elderess, a real priest or priestess and so forth, they will give you directions and they will say, well, what did your ancestresses and ancestors say about it? They're not going to say, do what I said. They're going to say, what did your ancestresses and ancestors say about it? What did your cry say about it? And then they'll give some more insight about what your own cry has said or give you some examples to help bring clarity. But they'll always lead you back to what are your people saying about it? What is the abosom that govern you? What are they saying about it? So that's the easiest way to get rid of all this nonsense. Not following what other people say, following your own cry, following your own insamampo, and that will knock it all out. All of the abuses, all of the nonsense, you'll be able to avoid all of that by following your own people. Or if you find yourself in the midst of such a situation and your cry and the insamampo are leading you out of that situation, then you leave the situation. You don't get that direction, get that guidance, and then turn it over to some pseudo-elder, elderess, or some peer, and they're like, oh, well, you're just saying that in your own head because you're not being committed and you're going to break up the family and all this other nonsense. They're trying to dissuade you away from what you should be doing based on their own foolish conditions, sometimes witting, sometimes unwitting. But the key is establishing a relationship with your own nananoma and samampo and your own cry and moving forward in that direction. That would be my response to that.
Yeah, to that. And I want to. There's another question. It goes right into that. Is that some of the people that I'm studying with, it seems as though that that we have a large family. Our ancestral family is large. All right, and instead of there are deities that are assigned or that are animated, sent to us for to guide us and also protect us in certain situations. But us being familiar with them, knowing their names, will bring a better communication, will open up better passages or more harmonious relationships when it comes to when we're in certain situations. But some people feel as though it's not necessary for you to know that deity, or I have enough. There's too many deities for you to know. But like you said, you don't want to call on a dentist when you need an optometrist. You need to deal with the deity or you need to deal with the nature or the nature who deals with that.
No, I understand. And sometimes people get certain things mixed up because they've been doing a lot of reading or listening to different things or looking on YouTube and stuff like that. They see all these hundreds of deities, and from a certain perspective, it seems like it's too much. But in reality, as you said earlier, it's familial relationships. So just like you have many, many, many different cousins and great aunts and uncles and everything else, but you have a mother and a father who brought you into the world, and they are primarily responsible for your development. and you have some grandparents who are primarily responsible for your development. It's only 4 of them. We have a divinity that governs our Kra that's primarily responsible for our development. And we have certain ancestresses and ancestors who are primarily responsible for our development. Other ones can chime in every now and then, just like your aunt and uncle can give you some advice every now and then, but they're not primarily responsible for your development. So the divinity that governs your own head, as well as the ancestresses and ancestors of your blood circle who are spiritually cultivated, that small, constellation of energy, of entities, that's what we need to be focused on. And when people, again, going back to establishing a strong relationship with the Nsumafo, those are the ones that come forward. That small group, those are the ones that come forward. And the divinity that governs your head, that's the one that's most prominent. And you feel initially the pull from that divinity just as an inclination in your head towards certain kinds of behaviors, thoughts, and actions and so forth, and a disinclination from other kinds of behaviors. You feel that in the head region. You also feel that when you begin to develop a relationship with the Nsumafo, and then they come forward and let you know what their names are. If you haven't already been told or read about them or heard about them somewhere else, they will come forward in dreams as well as at the shrine in different ways to confirm that. But it's not for individuals who are doing a lot of reading and taking in a lot of information. At some point when you get down to actual business, get down to work, just like you have 2 parents and 4 grandparents, divinity that governs your head, male or female, and you have patriclan and matriclan divinities, just like you have a mother and a father, and certain ancestresses and ancestors who guide you in their specific manner. So once people engage those relationships, once people actually engage the ritual work, then that confusion begins to dissipate. If they're doing a lot of memorization and reading and studying and pulling from a number of different places, they can be all over the place because there's bits and pieces of information in certain areas that's accurate, then it's a lot of nonsense. And people trying to sift through these different things, your Nsumafo have already sifted through that because they are the real deal. When they direct you, again, they're directing you according to what's in harmony with order. They're directing you what's in harmony with the law. They're allowing you to direct you towards Maa and Maat anyway. So Maa and Maat allows you to see what's real and what's not real, what's true, what's genuine, what's factual, what's veritable, what's not. So it goes back to doing that ritual work. And when you do that ritual work, you become grounded, like standing upon that plinth, standing on that foundation. So you're not wavering back and forth. You're gaining your sense of balance and equilibrium, and nothing can push you off of that. So it goes back to the ritual work first, getting grounded through the ritual work, and then moving throughout the course of the day, and every thought, intention, and action is guided by order as opposed to just being pulled in various directions.
And then I'm seeing that when I do the shows, because I have the show, the Journey and Rhythm show, but when I do some of the shows, it seems as though that the episodes that you're doing are right in harmony, or I'm doing, are somewhat in sequence or in harmony with each other. And I'm feeling a certain type of way, like I'm getting communicated through our ancestral realm, as well as I'm getting a direct communication from you.
Well, that just happens. People are on the same. There are specific issues, certain fundamental issues that people are beginning to recognize are most important, and zeroing in on those specific things. Rejecting pseudo doctrines, rejecting fake religions, rejecting, the whites and their offspring, their sense of morality and cosmology and everything else, and getting back to who we are based on our blood circle so we can move forward and engage this Ancestral nation-building process in its fullness. And the only way we can do that is we engage in that ancestral moral reversion, so then we can engage those 7 principal values of nation-building that we talked about earlier in the show, fully and without any kind of hindrance, without any kind of obstacle. We can fully embrace everything. There's no obstacles to that development because somebody's engaged in some nefarious practices and people are trying to hide things and everything else. We need to start from the root, eradicate all of the nonsense, go back to our sources, which are in our blood circles, and move forward in that way.
Ashe. Hetet. Uncle Johnson.
Okay, what's up? Get up. Okay, so we have a couple more calls. Just as a programming note, in the next 5 minutes, or actually 4 minutes, online, the broadcast will cut off if you're just listening online. If you're on the phone line, you'll be able to listen beyond 11 o'clock. We're not going to go too much longer beyond 11 o'clock, a couple of minutes maybe. But if we do go into that overtime, if you're just listening just on the computer, it will cut off automatically at 11 o'clock. But those who are on the phone line will be able to continue to hear beyond 11 o'clock. So if you want to hear beyond 11 o'clock, you must call in within the next 3.5 minutes to get on the phone line. So the call-in number is 657-383-0635, 657-383-0635, and you have about 3 minutes and 15 seconds to call in. All right, so we're going to go back to the phone line. Chiavo on the phone line. 8812, you had a question or comment?
Yes, I did. Hi, greetings, Brother Quincy.
Greetings.
I was recently talking with an elder, and he stated that the whites and their offspring can become spirits of order and receive immortality by practicing our culture and, I guess, following the laws of Maa and Maat. So I just want to know if this is true.
Okay, now that's a perfect example of what we were talking about. So now when he first said that, what was your first response spiritually?
Spiritually, I was like, oh, heck now, But I'm like, because we got to deal with the whites here, so we don't have to deal with the whites beyond here. I'm like, they can, I'm like, what? But
right.
He's been studying for so many years.
Exactly, and this is exactly what we mean. So, of course, what he said is 100% false. So if he was studying for 100 years, he still doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. So sometimes people are unwittingly lying to people, and sometimes they're deliberately lying to people because they have certain relationships with crackers and they're trying to, cover that up. Whatever it is, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Initiations don't mean anything. Years in the practice don't mean anything. People can smoke for 60 years. That doesn't mean it's good for them. They're poisoning themselves for 60 straight years. Some people are Christians for 60 years, and they're worshiping a cracker for 60 years, and that longevity means absolutely nothing. They've been poisoning their spirits for 60 years. So the whites and their offspring have no capacity whatsoever to become spirits of order. Anybody who says differently is lying, and of course your crowd told you immediately that was a lie. But because somebody who claims to have a position or been involved in some culture or been doing something else wants to try to influence you in a different direction, that's going against what your own crowd is saying. He didn't ask you, well, what is your Ori Inu saying, or what is your Ka'et saying, or what is your Selido saying? He's just trying to tell you, oh, this is what can happen. Totally false. They have no capacity to become, quote-unquote, immortal. They are spirits of disorder. That is how they incarnate. They do not have a Ka or Ka'et. So they're like cancerous cells in the body. They're not connected with the healthy cells, and they are slated for destruction. So that's a perfect example of your Ka'et is telling you the truth. Is this in harmony with Maa and Maat? Your Nsamanfo are telling you the truth, telling you that that's the realm you won't be dealing with the whites and offspring. They've already told you that, and you're feeling that, and then somebody comes along and tries to dissuade you away from what your own Ka'et, which is a divinity, is telling you, and what your own ancestors and ancestors are telling you. And he's like, no, forget all of that. Listen to what I'm saying. That's the nonsense that we're talking about. That's the nonsense that we're eradicating, that we're separating ourselves from and separating our people from. That's the kind of division we need to create. We need to establish these lines of demarcation between people who are directly misinforming our people, whether it's wittingly or unwittingly, it don't matter. If somebody has tuberculosis, whether they know they have it or not, if they're coughing on you, they're afflicting you. So we need to separate ourselves from individuals who are wittingly or unwittingly lying, misinforming our people. The reality is it was already wired in your ka'et, wired in your kra, your soul, that you knew that was inaccurate. And just by virtue of the fact that you called onto the show because you knew this is wrong and you wanted some confirmation about what was really going on in your own crowd. And he went against that. What was really going on with your NHOMA Nsamafo, he tried to dissuade you against that. So that's the real deal.
Thank you. I have another question. I was talking with a couple of sisters and brothers that I normally chat with, and they was telling me that using the word or the term chakra is pseudo, and that it doesn't exist because the chakras is not visible.
We published a book, and the book is called Ankh, The Origin of the Term Yoga, and Kara Kasa, The Origin and Nature of the Chakra. And you can download the book for free on our publications page. And we did a broadcast where we dissected the entire book as well. What many people don't know, because they were studying the Whites and Offspring and studying Hinduism and Buddhism and all these different things, and the Whites and Offspring say that the term chakra, kakra, comes from the Sanskrit language. And they'll say that's where it comes from. And they'll look in the Rig Veda, the different texts in India, and say the first time it was used was just a couple of thousand years ago, and it simply meant a wheel. And then later on, it was applied to the wheels of energy within the body and so forth. So kakra means wheel initially in the Proto-Indo-European language family going back a few thousand years ago, the root of all the European and Indo-European languages. Kakra means anything round or a circle or wheel. We show that the term kara in ancient Kemet means anything round, a cylinder, or a circle, and it's in the Medusa, the hieroglyphs, before the Whites and Offspring existed in the world. So they stole that directly from us. And in fact, until we published that, none of these individuals knew that. The Whites and Offspring didn't know that, and of course many of these black authors who said that, kakra, chakra comes from Sanskrit, they didn't know it either because they didn't do the study. They simply listened to what the Whites and Offspring said. They didn't listen to their own ka or ka'et, which would have led them differently. They just repeat what the Whites and Offspring say, and then they create a little philosophy around the misinformation. But we show the actual Medusa, the hieroglyph of the term, spelled out kara, meaning anything round, a circle, or a cylinder, and it also has to do with the term for shrine. We also show the 7 deities governing the 7 knots within the spiritual body in the text of ancient Kemet. So we go into details showing all of that. So you can download that book for free and the related video broadcast where we went into detail proving all that information, conclusively.
Thank you. I'm glad you really confirmed some things for me tonight, and I appreciate that. It was some things I was struggling with, and you really confirmed it today. Seems like every time I tune in, you always got a message directly for me. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Brother Cliff.
Okay, Amenet-Amen, I appreciate it. Appreciate the call.
Hotel.
Okay, so we have a couple of more calls, and then we'll be done. On Michelle on the phone line number 3395. You had a question or comment? Number 3395. Question or comment?
Yo, my bad. Hotel, bros.
What's up?
I've been listening about maybe 7 or 8 minutes. I've been listening. You speak on 42, the Law of the Maat or whatever, and
right.
And I've been kind of studying a little bit about that and Africa and all of that, and I was like, it's like the way my perception I get out of it is like it's like different eras. It's like different, like Kemet was a part of it. It was like its own little world, and then you got ancient Africa too. Like what you got like the Zulu warriors. Okay, now the Zulu warriors, they wasn't under those laws of Kemet, right? Is that right?
No, actually, they're number one. They're related genetically.
Yeah, that's right. That's
and
true.
At the same time, also culturally, even linguistically, you'll find that the isiZulu language, and you compare that language to the language of ancient Kemet, as well as the languages of Yakan and Yoruba and Ebe and Fula and various ones across the continent, you find that mother language goes back to, when we talk about ancient Kemet, we're talking about according to not just dynastic Kemet, but even according to the words of the people of Kemet going back 42+ thousand years. If you look at the so-called Turin Papyrus, when they talk about the foundation of a governmental structure in that region, they listed going back to 42+ thousand years. So we're talking about that, and that comports with the Kormusan industry, as they say in archaeology, of upper and lower Kemet, when they find 40+ thousand years ago these various settlements and so forth that they talk about. So, and we were talking back then, so we were speaking that same language. You see that the various languages all across the continent are all related, and we're dealing with the same forces in nature. The same earth we stand on today is the same earth they took. The same sun that shines on us, the same sun that's shone on us. The same atmosphere, the same thunder, lightning, black substance of space, and the spirits that animate the earth, spirits that animate the sun, moon, the planets, black substance of space, atmosphere, are the exact same spirits that animated them back then. They were possessing our people back then, and they're possessing our people today, wherever we exist in the world. So we're dealing with the same deities. You look in the languages, they have the same names and the same descriptive titles. They still possess just like they did before. So we're dealing with the same system, of course, because it's divine order. It's just there are slight differences based on expression. Some people move to a riverine area, they have a different expression of culture. They move to a mountainous region, they have a different expression. They move to the desert, they have a different expression. But it's fundamentally they're dealing with the same forces in nature.
Yes, that's what I always wondered, because I like to talk about, I like to study like Ghana and places like that, like the different tribes, there wasn't that. I always wondered, were they aware of, but for matter of fact, I think these were people like before. That was like before Kemet, right? Before the Egyptians, like the Zulu. Let me see, I think there was a Zulu tribe. The Zulu tribes were before, and what's this other group of people. But basically, what I'm saying is, what I'm trying to figure out is, all these tribes in Africa, all these other tribes in Africa, and then you got Kemet with the 42 the laws of Maat. Now, the other tribes, what laws were they on? Because they were some great people, too. I mean, we all were great back then. But they say, people always say that Kemet was during our greatest stage, which I believe it was. But you can't forget about the other people before them, that they also did great things, that we might not know about. I might not have much history on those other black people. You feel what I'm saying? What I'm getting at?
Yeah, no, I understand. So what we would say is, number one, like when we talk about Kanat and Kemet, like Kanat is one of the titles of ancient Nubia, but even with that, it's not just talking about pre-dynastic. When you look, even just recently, they found in the region of Kanat, so-called Nubia, Sudan, and so forth, a 70,000-year-old settlement of a city ever found anywhere in the world. And that just comports with what the people of ancient Kemet said about, their forebears. They came from the south. And you find that 70,000-year-old settlement. So, but the people are, all these different groups are genetically related. We migrate. You can even find archaeological when the migration took place away from that area to the southern part of the continent, to the west and central part. you can look linguistically and see that the linguistic, migrations comport with the genetic migrations, and then archaeological that comports with the separation of the people and so forth. But the key is, and we talk about this, we talked about some tonight, but then we did a broadcast where we dealt with it in detail, the 42 enunciations of Ma'at. These weren't 42 laws, like some people haven't, like the Ten Commandments is just a corruption of a little element of those, but it wasn't 42 laws of Ma'at that govern the people.
Exactly.
These are 42 deities that we invoke, and we invoke the same deity. Everybody on the continent and outside of the continent, when we are forced into America, we're practicing hoodoo, which is the Akan tradition in North America, or juju, which is the Yoruba tradition in North America, or voodoo and so forth. We're still being possessed by these same divinities. These 42 are just 42 major divinities. So we're aligning with them. So it's no different than saying aligning with the force in nature that governs the sun, force in nature that governs the earth mother, force in nature that governs the thunder, lightning, and so forth. Everybody on the continent is still being possessed by those same forces in nature. So those same 42 divinities are regulating everybody. And they're not the only deities, but those are 42 major divinities. So it wasn't just 42 laws that they had and then other people had other ones. It was 42 deities that people are invoking while they're alive throughout the course of their life. When they make their transition, of course, they invoke them as well. So it's the same system, because the system is nothing more than an expression of the order of creation. The deities are just the organs within the body of the supreme being, and we are the cells. So when the cells serve the organs, they're serving the whole body. And wherever we exist in the world, on the continent or anywhere else that we migrated or were forced to migrate, the same forces of nature will possess our people, guide us toward divine order, and we live in harmony with them. And if we were to write down what we were doing, it will comport with the same thing somebody's doing 10,000 miles away from us, because we're all living in harmony with the forces of nature.
Okay. I got another question. Okay, now when we talk about you hear the term astral projection. Okay, now that deals with your pineal gland. Now, would you think this would be right? In order for you to astral project, you would have to be eating the right foods, no meat whatsoever, high alkaline food. Would you think that would be true?
No. So now, what they call astral projection, some people experience a kind of light and will separate from the body. Like sometimes children will have those experiences where they can see their body laying down in the bed and they're up near the ceiling and so forth. And it depends on the person. Some people spirits separate from their body where they're sleeping and they're engaged in disorder. And guess what kind of spirits they come in contact with when they're projecting? The same kinds who are just like them, and they have negative experience. Then you have other people like you're talking about who are eating the right kinds of foods and trying to, basically trying to live in harmony with order. When their spirit separates from their body, the kind of ancestresses and ancestors and other discarnate spirits that they are drawn to are people who are on the same kind of frequency. So it's no different than physically when somebody's walking around awake, spirit possession. Some people can get possessed by a discarnate spirit who's a criminal, because they're on the same frequency as that kind of individual. Or you have other people who try to purify themselves, keep themselves in harmony with order, and they repel those kind of negative kind of spirits, just like two magnets repelling one another across the table. They repel the negative ones, and they only draw in and are drawn to the kinds that are engaged in the same kind of orderly behavior that they're engaged in. And they will get possessed by an ancestral spirit who's harmonious. So it really depends on what level of morality the person is manifesting. That determines, what's going to happen to them spiritually, whether it's astral projection, spirit possession, spirit communication, whatever experiences they have. What are you doing? What kind of behavior are you manifesting? What is your, what is the focus of your morality? If it's real, if
I understand.
Or if it's not.
Okay. I always wondered that, you know. I listen to people, I look at different videos, listen to different lectures, or whatever. I like listening to Brother Bobby Hemmett. You ever heard of him? Brother Bob, I'm quite sure you have. Bobby Hemmett.
Yeah, I'm familiar with him.
Yeah, I listen to him a lot.
He has a mixture, you know, because they did a lot of reading and stuff, so he has a mixture of some good information and misinformation just piled together, and then he's entertaining and articulate and everything else. So, you know, a lot of people like to listen to him, but you have to sift through and make sure whatever somebody says is going to be verified. You know, where'd they get that from? That's all it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. I'm just really starting. I'm trying to eat the right foods, you know. That's what I'm trying to eat healthy. I'm trying to do away with all meats, you know, all meats. I'm trying to do away with that and just eat you know, fruits of the earth, foods of the earth and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, that's always a good thing. You can't go wrong with trying to, you know, improve your diet and moving towards that plant-based diet and so forth. So that all that will do is just benefit whatever you're doing, physically as well as
that's right. That's right.
Okay, so we appreciate the call. We got a couple more people on. So we got a couple people. But again, get out there. We appreciate the call.
Okay.
All right, what's up?
What's up?
Okay, so we got one more call on the phone line. Chihuahua on the phone line, number 4732. You had a question or a comment?
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I'm fairly new to everything. I have a friend who's been following and listening to you guys, and he's been putting me in touch with your what you're saying and the different speeches that you put out. So I'm fairly new to everything, and I like what your messages and things. But one thing I wanted to get clarification on is I'm actually a light-skinned brother. I'm if you go down my lineage, I'm mixed, and there's a lot of I don't know if I would say majority, but a lot of African Americans, they that are in America, they're mixed, and they have. You go down the lineage, you see some white blood or something in there, but you always saying whites in their offspring, and I mean I don't even though I'm a light skinned brother, and I know I got some white family and down the line, I don't relate to white folks much at all, and I was just wondering from what your statements are, how you saying it almost feels like you're saying that people like me don't have any hope. Like I shouldn't even attempt to adjust my how I'm living and things, because from what you're saying, it just sounds like it's just kind of useless because I'm one of those offsprings, I guess. You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to get a little clarification. Although it really doesn't bother me, because I'm used to the whole light skin, dark skin thing. I got a friend whose parents are from Zimbabwe. I was just over at his place last night, and he's black as night, and I'm light as day, and we was hanging out with this hillbilly white guy yesterday, and it was weird. But anyway, like I said, I don't take offense to it, but I just want to get some clarification on that for these light-skinned brothers out here and the cats that are, got a little mixture going on in their bloodline.
Okay, so that's a good question. And in fact, we did a broadcast on that, and check out the broadcast. It's called Debrasim, the Ramifications of Reincarnation. And then we also did one called Sunanim, Race and Identity in Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit Cosmology. But the key is there's a difference between when we're talking about identity and the whites in our offspring are talking about identity. When we're talking about identity, it's based on who you are what spirit entered into the womb. So you have a mother and a father, and whenever male and female get together and they copulate and they conceive, okay, the sperm and ovum unite, and, there's a fertilization. But a spirit is going to enter into that little, zygote to give it life. That spirit is either going to be one of the male ancestors or ancestresses that's been with him ever since he was a baby, or it's going to be one of the female ancestresses or ancestors that's been with her ever since she was a baby. So, say if it's a black male who makes the foolish decision to copulate with a white female, when conception takes place, either one of his black ancestors or ancestresses are going to be drawn into that womb, and when that happens, because of the blood mixture, the baby's going to come out light brown. But it's still, if it was an ancient Zulu man who lived in, South Afuraitkaitnit 150 years ago and got caught up in some fashion or whatever, made a transition, and his descendants got caught up into enslavement and forced into North America, he's been watching over his descendants as an ancestor for 150 plus years. And he sees one of his descendants go marry some or connect with some white female, he gets drawn into the womb. Now, when he pops out, he's going to pop out light brown. He's going to look very light-skinned and so forth, but he's still that same exact Zulu spirit who was returned. It doesn't matter that the consanguineous relation, the blood relationship, makes his skin color look light. He's the Zulu who has returned, and when he grows up, he's going to be drawn to Zulu-type culture, and at some point, he's going to run into something that's Zulu and be like, oh, I really like this. I wonder why I like this Zulu culture so much. And if he engages in ritual practice, he's going to learn that that's who he actually is. He'll be very light, but he was a Zulu spirit who was returned, an Afurakani spirit, period. Now, if that didn't happen, if it was really one of her Irish relatives who was drawn into the womb, that spirit is going to come through a biracial physical body and is going to pop out light brown as well. But they're not black. That's that Irish male who used to walk around in the 1700s. Now he's walking around in the body of a light brown, body, but he's not one of our people. So the way we determine that is based on where does the spirit come from. That's the identity. So if that Zulu man pops out and he's light brown, he's still Zulu. He's not one of the whites in their offspring. It doesn't matter how light he is. He's Zulu, period. So it depends on what side of the family did the spirit come from. Very often what happens is the people who are really Afurakani or Afuraitkaitnit people, they're more so naturally drawn to their Afurakani family. They don't have that same draw to the quote-unquote white side of the family because that's really not their family. That Zulu man who lived in South Afuraitkaitnit 150 years ago had never seen an Irish person in his life. So now that his descendant goes and populates with one, he's forcing the Zulu ancestors to start interacting and make him have a white, quote-unquote, mother. Is that really his mother? In reality, spiritually, no. He came through that canal, but he was living in South Africa, the last time he was here. He had never seen that whole family of white people before. But because of his descendants' ignorance, he forced him into a consanguineous relationship, a pseudo-blood relationship with this group of white people he had never come in contact with before in thousands of years. But in reality, he's still Zulu, and he's going to be drawn to his Zulu ancestresses and ancestors. So it's all based on who we are.
That makes a lot of sense, and I can definitely relate to that because just from my personal experiences, although, I have some cousins that look like they, you wouldn't know if they were white or not, but I just could not identify with them. Although, in the past I've been somewhat of a ladies' man, but I've never been drawn towards any white women. I've been married twice, and both of my wives are black women. So I can relate to what you're saying. Although I realize that on both sides. My mother, she's brown skinned, but you wouldn't know that she's got like Irish and Indian, and then on my father's side is where I get the light skin from. We're Creole, like Portuguese and like grandfathers from Georgia and different things like that. So I got a lot of little mixture in me, but I'm originally from Detroit and I lived in Chicago, and now I'm in California. But so anyway, I've always just identified with blacks. I never really understood white folks, and like I said, even though I have some in my family, I just could never relate to them. And like you said, it's saying what you're saying, I can definitely relate to that, and it makes a lot of sense. So again, I wasn't offended by it, but because I am new to it, and I hadn't heard any clarification other than just a statement that you were saying as far as the whites and offspring, and I agree with you on that as well, because no matter how many times you try to talk to certain white people and try to explain to them our black people's struggles, they always have some roundabout way to can't even have any type of empathy. But anyway, I can go on and on. So I'm glad. Thanks for clarifying that for me. And I am again a new a member of what you're doing, and I appreciate everything that you're doing. I've been trying to change a lot of my ways. I still drink beers every now and again, and I smoke medical marijuana. Although even without hearing your speeches, I've been trying to make those adjustments on my own. Throughout the years, I've been dropping all types of habits, coffee, cigarettes. My last remaining one is beer and marijuana. But so I am again a new guy here, trying to get some clarity in life.
Well, no, I appreciate it. Appreciate the call. And that's the thing is, when your mother and father were conceiving, right before that, you were an ancestor. And before enslavement and all this stuff happened, you were living in some community on the continent the last time you were here, most likely. So whatever that community was, whether it was, in West or Central or South Afurakani, whatever it is, you were part of a community. And whatever your descendants did forced you into a certain, blood relationship. You're still the exact same individual who used to live somewhere on the continent, living in a village, doing what you normally were doing for thousands of years. And now, and the same thing with black people just in the Western Hemisphere period. We all used to be part of some community. And now we have returned. Now that we're reconnecting with our direct ancestors and ancestors, we're relearning what community that is, confirming that, and re-embracing who we are. So that's really the bottom line.
Yeah, and I also could relate to what you were saying. There's been times where I kind of tapped into deep meditation, sort of stumbled upon it. And, I was always trying to figure out how to meditate, and I always figure, well, how could you possibly clear your mind? And then I kind of stumbled upon my own technique, and I've gotten into some really deep states where I felt that I left my body, and as well as how do you say when you travel into space, and what's the term for that?
Oh, like the brother. Sometimes people say astral projection.
Yeah, astral projection. And what you were saying, when your life isn't aligned correctly, you would tend to have a tendency to have a kind of a bad experience with that. And I had one myself. I was in a really deep state, and then I stopped for a while because of it, and I started reading more into it, because at the time it was pure experimental, and I hadn't really read much into it. And but I was experiencing some deep states, and like you said, when you're not aligned correctly spiritually, if you do leave your body, you can feel entities entering into your body, which I've experienced that, as well as the out-of-body experience is one of things that I felt, which was just an odd sensation. And it's hard to distinguish whether, when you're in a meditative state, it's almost a sleep state, and sometimes you do fall asleep. So how do you actually distinguish if you were imagining or dreaming or if it was actual reality? Now, there's been times where I was just wide awake, completely wide awake, not sleep, but in such a deep state of meditation. And even when these things were happening, I kind of let them ride just to experience them, even though it was some weird stuff and I didn't understand it and it was sort of frightening. I let it ride through, knowing that I was wide awake. But anyway, one of the experiences was I had my arms wrapped around the earth, and I could feel all the anguish and pain in the earth to the point where it just scared the crap out of me. And I got out of the state, and it was a while before I even attempted to meditate again, just from that feeling of it was just a traumatic feeling, and I couldn't understand it. And now that you're telling me what you were just stating about not being in the right mind frame or the right states, you would experience these types of things. And that was interesting.
And the fact that one of the ways, when we talked about, Maa and Maat and the whole grounding piece and the plinth and all of that, and the shrines of Maa and Maat, one of the ways to help ground yourself, because you're going through the process, you're going through a purificatory process, right? You're trying to clean certain things out of your life and everything else. And that's being led by your own ka, led by your own ancestors and ancestors to move you in that direction. So the way to ground that information or ground those experiences and help to repel some of the negative things is to do it in the context of ancestral communication, establishing an ancestral shrine and so forth. That'll help to repel some of the negativity, keep you in some alignment, and those kind of experiences, when they happen naturally and organically, they'll be more guided and orderly, as opposed to based on where you are in your life at that moment. You know what I'm saying? Being pulled in different directions.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I've always considered myself, I call myself a ghetto flower, because I came in from Detroit through a lot of turmoil, even within my family, and I was able to remove myself from a lot of that. And, you looking at me from the outside, or even just my personality, you would never really know what my roots from where I came from, and even things that I was into younger. And I know a lot of people are the same way, but I can't really pinpoint what really triggered me to start making major changes. And even nowadays, I've been changing my diet and trying to, even get the last things like the alcohol and the marijuana out of my system as well. So it's it's a struggle because, of course, either the addiction aspect of it, or just I realize that it is a form of escapism. And then I tell myself, everybody needs some type of escapism and things like that, so that I continue to do it. But as I'm doing it, I've known that I need to stop and get my life in order.
Well, that's key. That's the thing. So your car is telling you what's real, and then you're just catching up with what your car is saying, and you already start making those incremental steps. So you moving in that direction anyway. So that's what I was saying, and that's just across the board. That ancestral shrine is what we would say is a central institution in ancestral religion, is establishing that relationship with that class of ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated, who can give you that proper guidance, which they've been doing. The law, sometimes these urges that we have to move in a certain direction and purify ourselves and, go against the other self-destructive stuff that other people are doing, are these nudges and pushes by our Msamafo anyway. So
and I have
opens that up.
And I'm not going to take much more of your time, but I have been recently doing some genealogy and looking into my ancestral lineage. Interesting enough, my great-great-grandfather, his name was Cody Bryant. He was the richest black farmer in the nation, and I dug up about 6 articles from 1909 that he was from Georgia, but he had acres of land. He was hiring black people, paying them way more than anybody else or whatever, but W.E. Du Bois wrote about him. Anyway, so it's definitely something drawing me and leading me into a more righteous and, as you said, structured, organized lifestyle.
Absolutely. That's how they work. So, yeah, we appreciate the call.
All right, thanks a lot.
Any questions, just let us know. All right, thanks. What's up? Okay, so we got one more call on the phone line. Michiawo, number 9384. You had a question or a comment?
Michiawo, no question. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah, yeah, that's better.
Okay. So, my question really centers around like the sob mentality or the lone wolf mentality, because I have a question for people, like myself. I was born on Menmenada, and however, when it comes to the Achiwadifo or just a person who, I don't care what race they are, like just, who basically partakes in like criminal behavior, behavior that violates Nananam Unsamanfo, it's like I begin to feel very volatile, like, but I understand that it's really not my primary function. However, I know the last time I know this is, I had got into it with a pagan motorcycle gang member. I crushed him. So, and I felt good about it, and I liked doing it. But I wasn't born on one of the days that, are supposed to be for the warrior. So how do you explain that? How do you explain that natural inclination toward volatile behavior to the Achiwadifo?
Well, there's a couple of things. So, and you're talking about, when the brother's talking about the, being born on Amenet-Amen and the different, deities and so forth connected to the day in our Akan tradition. So, you're talking about the divinity Amen-Men. Now, number one, every divinity is governed by divine order, which means they embrace divine law, love, and divine hate. Everybody governs that. So there's never going to be a time where any divinity is not embracing of divine hate and despises disorder. Now, with regard to Amen-Men, when you look at Amen-Men, and they talk about he's a defender of the past and he's the most ancient one and all of that, great elder, but at the same time, you see he's mummified, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mummification not only means that he's, mummified impervious to decay, meaning, they've mummified the people and, thousands of years later they open up these, tombs and it's just like they just mummified them a few days ago or something like that. It's not only that he's, impervious to decay, but at the same time, when they talk about being a defender of the past, maintaining ancestral protocol, he's not only someone who's rejecting of, disorder and therefore maintaining ancestral protocols in every aspect of culture, but he despises any deviation from that, so much so that he's mummified to the point where it's impossible for anything outside of what has been preserved to be embraced. That means he's a conservative. He's a real conservative, not like a Republican. He's a conservative. Purely crystallizing what the real culture is, fossilizing what the real culture is, and anything outside of that is not acceptable. So much so that he's mummified into that state.
Right.
So that inclination to revile anything that is not fossilized into purity is naturally coming from somebody born on that day. And you'll see when they talk about defender of the past, it's not just about, oh, well, you know, he remembers the history, you can go to him and learn a long genealogy. No, they're making sure that everything is done correctly. There is no veering off from anything. Those are the people, you know, place certain, whether it's right to passage or any kind of things in order to make sure that there's no deviation. Anything, and you'll find the same thing with sisters who are born on that day, Amma, and so on and so forth. They'll, you know, they're very particular about making sure that any deviation that shows up, they want to eliminate that right away because they don't want the whole structure to collapse. They want to make sure and preserve and perpetuate what was established without any profanation. So that's where some of that would be coming from.
Okay. Thank you. Last question. So I, communicate with my Nananam Unsamanfo directly. I am a Khan. So the ancestors and ancestors, when I ask for some sort of guidance, like it doesn't take long, it'll come the next day. Sometimes it kind of, freaks me out. Just recently, I was at the shrine communicating with them, and I told them to send me some guidance because I'm trying to learn more so the Twi language. And so, for whatever reason, a sister from Ghana had reached out to me. I didn't, I wasn't aware that we were friends on Facebook. And she reached out to me and we began to talk, and she is a Khan. And she began teaching me the Twi language. Now, I also know that, because I eventually, because she said she wants to teach me about, culture and the language and whatnot. However, I do know that a lot of people, they get excited because, they're communicating with someone from the continent. And the continent, there are people on the continent that are just as infected. It doesn't mean anything. So I'm trying to find out is it safe? You understand? Trusting, basically people who I meet from over there. Like, I do allow my intuition to guide me. I haven't necessarily asked her, about, her, what spiritual system she's involved in. But exactly, how am I sure, that it's okay to be under, someone's tutelage from over there? Because I don't know that.
You're just trying to learn something as far as the language from her, right?
I mean, I am, because my, when it comes to my spiritual system and what it is that, I do, like they communicate with me directly through visions. That's basically how I learn my spiritual system. But I always find myself interested in what others are doing. You know what I mean? And
right.
So
yeah.
I do look for similarities in practice. I do.
Right. It's no problem. Of course, you look out for somebody trying to be shiesty or something like that. But outside of that, you're just learning about language. It's no different than, sometimes they have these websites where they're doing pen pal things and people are learning language from people, learning Twi and stuff like that. You could interact, interface. Since you're already grounded with your own culture, you're not in a position where you'll just be lured into rejecting your shrine and just running up under somebody. You're already beyond that kind of mindset. So outside of the regular precaution, where somebody might be trying to get a green card or something, trying to marry somebody over here, outside of that, making sure it's not something nonsensical like that. Yeah, interacting and learning about the language or some other stuff that they know about the culture is no problem. As long as you're grounded with your people, then it's, it's cool.
Okay, thank you. Medase.
Okay, no problem. Nyamewaa-Nyame Nhyehyee. Okay, so looks like that was the last call on the phone line. Just want to make sure we didn't miss anything in the chat room. So give me a second. And for the individuals who hadn't seen, if you look on the website, the AKYISAN page on the website, that's talking about our conference coming up on March 20th here in Washington, D.C., all-day conference, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, Ancestral Religious Reversion. We're going to have a number of presenters. Of course, it's a free conference, open to Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people only. When you go to the AKYISAN page, you'll see the flyer. We just updated the flyer, and continue to check because we have a couple more presenters we are going to add. So we're going to have about 7 presenters that day dealing with different expressions of ancestral religion, Akan, Yoruba, Vodun, Mbundu, and different traditions and so forth. So we're going to continuously update that, and we're going to add the itinerary as well. If you would like to place an ad in the journal, publish a journal, a book just for the conference, but it will be given away to everybody who comes to the conference for free, just as we did back in October when we had our Hoodoo Nation Festival. We printed a book just for that with articles on hoodoo and so forth, as well as a directory of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit businesses, organizations, or institutions. So we did that. And that book, we also made it available as an ebook online for free, and we also sell the softcover version. But when people came that day to the conference, everybody walked away with a free copy of that book. We're going to do the same thing at the AKYISAN conference. We're going to publish a journal, a book for that, having, articles on ancestral religion and culture and holistic health and a number of different things. But we're also going to have a section in the back with a directory of businesses, organizations, or institutions. So if you would like to place an ad, we need to get those JPEG files in as soon as possible so we can begin to format the journal. It's going to be an 8.5 by 11 magazine size journal, full color, of course. So we have the ad rates on the page: $25 for a 1/4 page, $35 for a half page, and $50 for a full page. If you would like to place an ad for your organization, your business, your institution, or if you just like to place a personal ad just to support what we're doing and send a message to the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit community, there'll eventually be millions of people who see the ad because we're going to place the book itself as an ebook for free online, but then we'll also sell the softcover version for people who would like to purchase the softcover version as well. But on the day of the event, as we said, everybody will receive a free copy of the softcover version to attend the conference. So we've had over nearly 1.5 million hits on our website over the past 12 months, and that will only increase because the trajectory is upward. So if you place an ad, then of course, millions of people will see that. So if you would like to support that effort, just go to the AKYISAN page on our website, and we also have an AKYISAN page on Facebook as well. And you'll see the rates and everything, and you can send us your JPEG files and so forth. If you'd like to support the books that we have published, we have 17 books out. We've mentioned a couple of them and read from one of them tonight. They range from $8 to $11. We also have discounts for the first 5 books. It's 20% off, so it's 5 books for $40. The first 5 books: Afuraitkaitnit, The Origin of the Term Africa; Maa, Divine Law, Love, and Divine Hate, which we read from tonight; Ubin Sheng, The Ancestral Summon; the Okra Complex, The Soul of AKANFO, talking about the nature of the cries of soul. And then we also have Kukutuntun, The Ancestral Jurisdiction, proving that Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Buddha, Brahman, Yahweh, Allah, all fictional cartoon characters who never existed of any race or in any form whatsoever, and also dealing with the cosmological foundation of creation. So that first 5, for example, is 5 books for $40, is 20% off. Any order of 10 books or more is 30% off. Like, for example, the first 10 books is $66, and then the whole 17-book set is $111 for 17 books. So you can check that out on our publications page, the NHOMA page, if you'd like to support the work we are doing. And again, Yedase, we thank you for tuning into the broadcast, and Yebeshia Bio, we will meet again. That's it.